Welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack
and Sean Chapman.
We are here as always to talk about stuff. This week, among other things, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Pokemon.
What's that? Is that like a Digimon knockoff? I don't know what Pokemon is.
Digimon and Pokemon, I don't think anyone will ever know which one is the knockoff of the other.
No.
It's like a chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, it doesn't. They're so different.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But people have this perception that one is a knockoff of the other, and of course, if you look into it, it's like, no, they're very different.
Yeah, they're like one is like a Tamagotchi thing, another is like a Game Boy game. Very different.
But Pokemon, obviously, one of the biggest media franchises of our lifetimes, if not the biggest if you think of just like worldwide penetration.
Yeah. Which that like 20th anniversary video they released was sort of like appealing to that, like, hey, everybody in the world plays Pokemon games.
Yes, I mean, we've done niche podcasts. I don't think this will be one of them. I think if you listen, you have probably some experience with Pokemon. And even if you don't, you know enough about Pokemon to probably listen and have fun as we just go down memory lane. Yeah. I've got 3 different ranked lists to talk about. I made a PowerPoint to show Sean.
Oh, I didn't know this.
It's elaborate.
Now I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I'm sure that'll play really well in an audio format for the listeners at home.
I might try to release something. It's mostly, we'll get there, it's for my memory of talking about some Pokemon that I would never remember the name or picture of if I wasn't looking at it.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, but I will probably upload that, but we'll see. Anyway, no, that's going to be our main topic today. We are also going to talk about a couple of other things. For instance, Sean keeps trucking away at Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth.
Yes, which is still the best video game title of the year so far.
Okay, awesome.
Like, that's the one to beat everyone else coming out this year.
Yep. Since last week, I finished another fucking Fire Emblem game, so we got to talk about that. So much Fire Emblem. I'm seeing the world as a grid.
Yeah.
Sean, you are just a unit to be sacrificed.
Well, you're just like one of many Digimon whose identities are completely nothing to me, and I'm just like morphing you into different things to be used for like my masterful plans.
All right, so we're going to talk about games in a minute. Why don't we go ahead and get started with a couple of pieces of news and related stuff.
All right.
The first one I wanted to hit up is one of our most anticipated games of the year. I know this is true for both of us, is No Man's Sky.
Yes,
on
definitely.
the PS4 and PC. Finally got an announced release date this week for, I think, June 21st.
Yes.
And it's a major retail release. It'll be $60, have boxed forms, digital forms. And I think that was one of the things that was kind of nebulous. Is this going to be a $30, $40 downloadable game? Is this going to be a bigger thing? It has always seemed like the scope of the game would warrant this, so perfectly acceptable.
But it's like coming from a smaller studio, which like means people expected it to probably like hit at a lower price point. But
yeah. But no, I'm really excited for this. I already pre-ordered it on Amazon to get my Amazon discount, which I mentioned before.
Right, yeah.
So that's good. And I almost get excited now when something has a physical retail release on PS4 because it's like, I'm saving money on this shit.
Yeah.
It's weird. Anyway, but yeah, not much to say, but are you excited?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Because then also with them announcing the release date, there was some game outlets got to spend some time with the game. And I've listened to some interviews with Sean Murray, who's the main, I guess, the lead developer on the game. He's also the guy of, like, every time it's been on E3, which feels like it's been, like, 3 times or something now. He's always the guy that goes out there. And he's, like, some of those interviews have been really fun to listen to and see some more video of the game and sort of get some more ideas about what the, like, game progression and loop mechanics of that game are. Because, obviously, on stage, they're, like, really pushing the big, expansive, procedurally generated galaxy, which is the really flashy part about the game that works really well on stage. But sort of hearing about some like the crafting mechanics and stuff like that in the game has been really interesting. And one of the things I'm most excited about is hearing that, because there's, you know, it's all about space exploration and gathering materials and like upgrading your ship and doing all this stuff. And I remember way back when, around when they first announced the game, they talked about you would have to gather different elements, like physical elements, like what would be carbon or silicon and stuff like that. But they decided to make a fake periodic table of elements that equated to our real world periodic table of elements. Now they've just said, fuck it, and it was like, we're just doing the real periodic table of elements, which I think is way cooler. Like, I want to just go out there and find a tree and just be like, I'm going to take all the carbon that is in this tree and leave it barren of everything else. Like, I think that part's really cool that they just...
That's insane. It also sounds like the kind of thing that you would never come to except by an organic function of like, of course we can't do that.
Yeah.
We're going to try some of it. Oh, fuck it, we're going to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, you would never be insane enough to just say, we're going to do the whole periodic table in the game.
Yeah, like, I just got really weirdly excited when I saw, like, a screen, like a little video clip of someone playing the game that came out, like, a week ago, and then just, like, picking up some silicon, and then, like, the silicon, like, SI pop up on the screen with, like, the periodic table box is like, yes, that's what I want from my, like, nerdy space exploration game.
It sounds so cool. It sounds kind of like this perfect hybrid of a lot of the different game types I like.
Yeah.
Of like kind of an indie explorer kind of thing, like appealing to my Proteus side of my mind.
Yeah.
But with more direction and scope behind it in kind of an open world way, but not with like probably an oppressive story or anything like that.
And then like the Star Trek space exploration thing that's really got me excited.
It's going to be good. I hope.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see that it's like finally coming out. It's they've got their shit together definitely, which is clear. You know, it's got its date and everything, so it sounds pretty cool. Speaking of release dates, it's like this is non-news at this point, but Uncharted 4 got delayed again.
Yeah, for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so this is probably the final delay.
Yeah.
May 10th, global release date. I just think it's funny that game. I don't mind it in the slightest. I just think they should take whatever time they need. And I love that it's clear that Sony is not rushing them. They want the PS4 is a big enough hit. They don't need to rush this game. They can give it time to bake. Yeah. But I do think it's funny. That game has had an incredible number of
I think it's like this is its third delay at this point. Yeah.
Just the number of like hard dates they've set and then said, months ahead of time. No.
Yeah.
So anyway, but looking forward to it. And you have a little bit to say about Uncharted in a little bit.
Yes.
But let's talk about two bigger pieces of news. First, I want to talk about this week's Nintendo Direct.
Okay.
So Nintendo did a Nintendo Direct. This was about their upcoming summer and fall Wii U and 3DS games, but not Zelda, which people were mad about. They weren't going to... That's going to be its own thing if they talk about it. They're not going to do 2 minutes on the new Zelda in a thing where they're talking about, the new Paper Mario and shit.
Yeah, that's going to be like their E3 Direct.
Right. Yeah. So they didn't talk about that. They didn't talk about the NX. That's okay. I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, again, they're going to save that for the E3 Nintendo Direct.
Yeah. This was exactly what they pitched it. It was like a 30-minute, we're going to talk to you about some of our new games. I thought it was fine. It was cool. It was a Nintendo Direct. I watched it live because I was bored at work. And no, I wasn't even at work that day because I'd had a flat tire. And then there's a whole thing. The flat tire turned into your car is not safe to drive.
Okay.
Beyond the flat tire.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to say, like, I could have told you that.
No.
Like, you shouldn't be driving your car with a flat tire.
It was like the AAA guy while changing the tire.
It's just like... You do realize that, like, that thing when you're playing, like, Grand Theft Auto and, like, you can tell, like, the smoke's coming out and this car's just going to blow up and there's nothing you can do. You do realize that's the state your physical real-world car is in, right?
Pretty much. So I had to take it to a Firestone, wound up paying $500 over the course of that day with all the shit they had to do to my car.
Nice.
But anyway, while I was waiting there, I watched the Nintendo Direct on my phone.
Seems like a good time to do it.
A very good time. I had literally nothing better to do.
Yeah.
I hadn't even had the foresight to have my 3DS with me to play actual Nintendo games. I could only watch the shit on my phone and wish I was playing Nintendo games. But anyway, it was fine. They announced some cool things. So Super NES games are coming to the 3DS. 3 of them are already up. It's F-Zero, Mario World, and Pilot Wings. Those are the 3.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and
I would have thought my third pick for that would have been Link to the Past. If you did that,
it's coming out next week or in a couple weeks.
I was just going to say, really, ideally, it would be Super Mario World, Link to the Past, and Super Metroid.
All of them are coming by May.
But that's like what you would want for your 3 that you're releasing. It's like we don't really need to release any more Super Nintendo games. Like you got your 3.
No, they're doing all of those, and these are all on the Wii U already, and I own several of those on the Wii U. And so they're at the same price point as the Wii U. I think they have similar emulation features and everything. And they only run on the new 3DS, which is not necessarily surprising. It's got more power, so it can probably do emulation better.
Sure.
But anyway, I got briefly excited when I heard that, because I'm like, man, I own a bunch of those games. I'd love to play them on the 3DS. I bet I can just wait. No, this is Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then they came out like, can't. Nope. Have to buy them again. No saves transferred. Nothing. Well, I'm just going to stick with my Wii U for those.
Yeah.
But anyone who doesn't have a Wii U, which is the majority of 3DS owners,
yes,
have fun. You've got, some of the greatest games of all time coming out for the 3DS. That is good news.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little more like, Vita and PS4 where you buy it one place and you get it both.
Yeah.
And then it's weird because Nintendo has made inroads in that. Like, you buy the DLC for Smash Bros., you get a code for the 3DS, vice versa, stuff like that. But not here.
That's unfortunate.
I would not be surprised if when their full My Nintendo account, which they also talked a little bit about, in this Nintendo Direct. When that really fully launches, I would not be surprised if they add in some of that kind of functionality.
Hopefully.
There really is no way. I mean, the biggest thing is there's no way to check between the accounts because it's all hardwired to your system.
Right, yeah.
But maybe at some point they'll be able to upload the licenses to the cloud, as we say.
Nintendo doing something with the cloud? They fear the clouds.
Exactly. The clouds in their games are fucking evil.
That's actually, yes, that's true.
They throw fucking spiky things at you.
Oh, except for Fox McCloud is a good guy.
Good guy. They talked to, I don't remember if they talked about Star Fox Zero at this Nintendo Direct. I think it was like briefly. What else did they talk about? I'm just going to skip to the big one. The big news for me was they finally gave the English announcement for the Fire Emblem X Shin Megami Tensei game.
What is its title again?
Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE.
Yes, that's right. That's the title.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE. In Japan, it was called something like, I think, Genbun Iken Roku or something like that. #FE. So, and I didn't know what the fuck that translated as or what they were going to translate it as, but they announced it. They gave a trailer with English subtitles and talked about it a little bit. It will be in Japanese with English subtitles. They're not bothering to dub it, which is okay with me. That sounds fine.
Yeah. Although it's interesting, I feel like Nintendo almost never does that.
They almost never do. This one, I think it's very clear. Its appeal is probably limited enough that that's okay. Yes.
I mean, when you decide to title your game Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE, you've given up on the mass market play for your game.
Yeah, I mean, and also, it's clear. This game looks cool. I want to say that. It's coming out this summer. I really can't wait to play it. It's an Atlas game. They generally make good things.
Yes.
Which is probably an understatement for us. And, from what they showed, it's starting to cohere a little more for me what the game actually is. But it's clear, that in development, they had a lot of changes over what this would be because they announced it as a Shin Megami Tensei X Fire Emblem game, and I think they had just started development. And now it's basically a Shin Megami Tensei spin-off with Fire Emblem characters integrated in the weirdest of ways. They're like shadow warrior creatures, and their faces are masked, so I'm not sure what the point is. But overall, it is kind of like Persona 4 Dancing All Night, where it's about the world of idols, and it's got a bunch of music stuff in it. And again, Atlas does all of these things well, so I'm excited for it. But it's clear at some point they were like, man, we can't get this Fire Emblem stuff working. Let's just make a pop idol game.
I mean, it does, it's weird to think back to, all those years ago when it was first announced on, TGS or something like that. Yeah. And it was just, this, 30-second teaser trailer that was just, a, reddish-black background and a bunch of Shin Megami Tensei characters and Fire Emblem characters, cutouts just, coming towards the screen. And it's, SMTX Fire Emblem. It's oh my god, it's Shin Megami Tensei across Fire Emblem. This is going to be amazing. And now we're sitting here talking about Tokyo Mirage Sessions #FE, the pop idol JRPG made by Atlas that has Fire Emblem characters as summons and bullshit like that. It's what the fuck happened with that game?
I don't know. And again, it still looks good. I'm excited to play it. It's cool that the Wii U will get a kind of meaty RPG, but it's just the whole situation is kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, and nothing else that was revelatory at the Nintendo Direct. The big new game they announced is a new Paper Mario. I forget the name, but it's Paper Mario something something. And the conceit this time is he has paint and can use paint for shit. It did not look all that great to me. No. It also did not seem to have much of an identity. Say what you will about the other Paper Marios. The first one is great, and it's it's kind of a sequel to Mario RPG for the SNES, but with this new paper style. It's a great game. You have Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, which is a pretty, clear sequel, and I think that one's also very good.
Very beloved.
Yeah, very good game. And then Super Paper Mario on the Wii, which has its fans, but is this weird kind of hybrid where it did this side-scrolling thing, but it wasn't really as good as a Mario side-scroller, and then it did the RPG thing, but it wasn't in the RPG stuff as well as the other Paper Marios. And then there was Paper Mario Sticker Star on the 3DS, and no one liked that.
No.
So I don't know about this one.
Yeah, every time I see a new Paper Mario game, ever since they first announced Super Paper Mario or whatever, and it was you saw it's oh, they're not making a sequel to Thousand Year Door. They're not making another game in the style of the first two Paper Mario games. They're deciding to go something completely different with this franchise. I just got really sad, and then now every time a new Paper Mario game is announced, I just get more sad because it's you had these two amazing RPGs and that were very unique and had a clear identity and really strong games, and then you've just somehow you just decided to throw that all away, and I don't understand why.
Well, here's the weird thing. I mean, the Mario RPG torch has clearly been passed to the Mario and Luigi games.
Yeah, but who gives a shit about that? They're not paper. They live in this adorable paper craft world. Fuck that.
They're really good games, though, and they do, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is mechanically a sequel to Thousand Year Door. It is a Paper Mario game in its mechanics. It's just not with the paper style. And then they followed on that trajectory. The most recent Mario & Luigi even had Paper Mario in it.
Yeah.
So it kind of leads...
But that's like... How come Paper Mario is now all of a sudden playing second fiddle to Mario and Luigi in these fucking RPGs when it's like... Mario and Luigi, like normal Mario and Luigi, should be in a game that's called like Paper Mario. Oh yeah, and other Mario and Luigi are also in this game, but that doesn't matter because it's fucking Paper Mario. Remember how awesome those games were? But no, they've just diluted that franchise into bullshit. It is too bad. It's one of those ones where it does not seem to have a clear reason for being anymore. No. And I don't know, Nintendo's pretty good with managing the franchises they actively use. It's rare you get just like a throwaway crap Zelda game, for instance. The only one in recent memory being like Triforce Heroes or whatever that was. Yeah. Speaking of Zelda, they did do more on the Hyrule Warriors Legends that's coming out for 3DS. I don't know if I'm going to play this. I didn't play the one on Wii U. I will say, like, the one they're doing for 3DS, they've added a shit ton of stuff, and there's some cool things in it. And it came out in, I think, Europe and Japan already, and reviewers have said Linkle, as dumb as her name is a really cool character, and the stuff around her is cool in that. Sure. And they did announce the other thing is that if you buy the 3DS one and you have the Wii U game, you get a code, and you can download all the 3DS extra stuff into the Wii U version, which makes me think... They'll probably have a paid version of that for the Wii U, so you can just buy it as DLC. So that's cool. You won't have to go buy a 3DS in the game and everything. Or that is how they'll do it. Who knows? Yeah, it's all bets are off with that stuff with Nintendo.
Well, they've been pretty good with their DLC management, so I would not be surprised. But anyway, they talked about that. They touched on Fire Emblem Fates because it's still getting supported with all its DLC and stuff, and Revelations they did a little trailer for because that comes out next week. Right. The coolest thing for me is that Bravely Second, they talked about a little bit. And it was great because you heard the Nintendo guy keep saying Bravely Second End Layer. He never said just Bravely Second. He said the whole title.
The primary competitor for Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. Best game title of the year award. Fight.
Bravely Second End Layer. Yeah. And Bravely Second is getting a demo, which is coming out March 10th. And it's exciting because the Bravely Default demo was a pretty cool chunk of content. It was not just like a little flimsy demo, and you could carry over some of the progress into the game. Well, they've gone way overboard for Bravely Second. It's basically a standalone prologue to the game that has nothing from Bravely Second in it. It's its own little mini campaign for free, and it's apparently pretty cool. So I'm very excited to play that because I'm all in for that game. Can't wait for it to come out, but I like that they're going to kind of let everyone... try things out with what is more than just a demo.
Yeah, so that's nice.
Yeah, so that's coming out March 10th, and I don't remember if there was anything else big, but that was Nintendo Direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nintendo game's coming out.
Yes, more Paper Mario, whether you want it or not.
Yes. I will say it is kind of funny. I still... Some of me doubts the reports that they're actually planning to launch the NX this year. Yeah. Because they have a lot coming out for the Wii U this year. Like, especially they've added now, you've got Tokyo Mirage Sessions, you've got...
Wait, Jonathan, the full title, please.
Tokyo Mirage Sessions, #FE.
Thank you very much.
You've got the Paper Mario one, they're supporting it with that. You've got some of the ones in the spring, and into fall they've got more things coming out. So it doesn't seem like a console they've abandoned yet.
Although at the same time, like, all of those games sound like they are, like, B or C tier Nintendo games. Like... The only one is Legend of Zelda, but that's still in this like weird, vague area where it's like they haven't talked enough about that game to be 100% sure that it's not going to be like Twilight Princess and do some weird cross Wii U NX thing or something like that. But there's no like big new Mario game that's just on Horizon or anything like that. Like the closest I would say is like Star Fox Zero, but even that's not like really a mainline Nintendo title.
Well, the weird thing with Star Fox Zero is that it was one of those ones designed to kind of save the system because it's trying to use the gamepad support. Yeah. But it got delayed long enough that that's kind of irrelevant. Mm-hmm. They've pretty much given up on it. So, we'll see. Yeah. If I were a betting man, I'd say their plan is probably the NX is coming out this year and they just want to keep stuff trickling out and support the Wii U until then so fans don't feel like they're abandoned, because that totally happened with the transition between Wii to Wii U, and it was disastrous. Yeah. The Wii had nothing for like the last 2 years except for Skyward Sword. And really, Scott, we talk about Zelda a lot. Zelda does not target a huge part of the Nintendo audience, I would say.
I mean, it's not Mario Kart.
No, it's not the kind of thing that will save a system on its own. I think it could launch a system successfully. Twilight Princess certainly helped with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's the one you put in 11th hour and then say, we're going to save everything.
No, yeah. I mean, this, Nintendo Direct feels to me like these are, the titles that, were already quietly in development at Nintendo for, a year or two, or, with Tokyo Mirage Sessions, #FE has been in development for, 500 years or whatever. And so now they're just hey, these are going to keep on coming out. And this Nintendo Direct, if the rumors about them launching the NX this year are accurate, this feels like they are clearing the field, and this is we're announcing all the Wii U titles basically we still have in development, so that way when E3 comes around, we'll talk about Legend of Zelda and we'll talk about NX, and that's basically it, because that's all we'll need to talk about at that point.
Well, and again, people were a little disappointed there weren't any big things. If they are launching the NX this year, you can be damn sure they're saving big things.
Yeah.
It is an open secret that Retro Studios is working on something. They won't tell people what it is. It might very well be a Metroid thing for the NX, and that would be fucking awesome.
Or it's another Donkey Kong Country game,
which would
Tropical
be cool.
Freeze 2.
Which would be cool, too. Those are really good games. There are no Metroid Primes, but then that's tough to say anything is.
Sure.
But yeah, I forgot the funniest part of this Nintendo Direct is the guy who's directing Metroid Prime Federation Force, the shitty 3DS knockoff no one wants, came out, and I felt so bad for this guy, because this is clearly a passion project of his,
right.
And so he gave this... did you see this?
No, I didn't watch it.
Oh, you gotta watch it. He gave this very passionate defense of the game, and it was every word you could tell he knew full well what the reaction to this game was. And if you don't know, people hate the idea of this game.
I mean, it was such a bait and switch at E3 last year. It's their own fault for how they announced the game.
It's their own fault for calling it Metroid Prime Federation Force.
Yeah.
It would be like if Hyrule Warriors was Ocarina of Time 2. Hyrule Warriors. Think of how big of a fuck you that would be.
Yeah, I mean, it's just everything about the messaging behind that game, they handled really terribly.
Because here's the thing. I'm sure it could be a good game for its own merits. There's no reason it can't be good, but calling it Metroid Prime and having it have nothing to do with one of the most beloved series of games ever, that's where you get the kicking the balls to fans.
Especially when you're teasing that there's going to be a new Metroid thing during your Nintendo Direct at E3 last year, and then it comes out and it's it's a mini-game collection on your 3DS, I guess? I'm not even entirely sure what the game is. Does not look like it has anything to do with Metroid. I didn't see a single Metroid or Samus anywhere in that fucking trailer. It was no, what is this thing?
It's basically a cooperative 4-person shooter, and that is not what Metroid is.
No.
Again, which is fine if you call it something else.
Yes.
Even Metroid Prime Pinball back in the day, Samus in her Morph Ball is the pinball, and that's cool enough to let people let that slide.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they should have called it Super Mario Galaxy 3 Federation Forces. Then no one would be pissed off at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways they could piss people off. Anyway, I mean, if the NX launches with, launch window, that new Zelda, something Metroid-related, and a new meaty Mario game, instant success, if they can actually pull that off. But I don't know if they will. Anyway...
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on. That was the Nintendo Direct. Just that Metroid part was the funniest part. And that trailer, by the way, went up on YouTube and got, I think its ratio right now is 90,000 downvotes to 20,000 upvotes.
I mean, what do you expect?
Just immediately.
The Metroid fan base for Nintendo is a very underserved fan base at this point.
Well, and that's the other thing. We haven't had one since Other M. No one liked that. So really it's been 2007, which was Metroid Prime 3. Yeah. That's a long time in the video game world to let a beloved series just lie dormant.
Yeah.
Anyway, the other thing from this week is the first trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie, directed by Paul Feig, starring Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy, coming out this summer, was released, and sexists everywhere had a field day hating it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, I thought the trailer was fine.
It's
a movie.
It is a trailer for a comedy film.
Yeah.
It looks the exact same as every comedy movie trailer that's been released for 5 years.
And beyond that, I mean, people started showing the original Ghostbusters trailers. Those are really shitty too.
Yes.
People trying to judge the movie by the trailer. That's a fool's errand, right? There.
Yeah. Especially the first trailer that far out from the movie.
Yeah, I thought it looked fine. I thought there were some cool things in it. I liked the suits and the proton packs looked cool. I liked some of the new ghosts they showed. Just it was kind of jarring to see CGI ghosts in a Ghostbusters movie.
Sure, yeah.
which was fine. It was cool. And, I like that cast a lot. So I still am excited for the movie. The trailer I was never expecting the trailer to, pique my interest or lower it, really. Because that's, again, as you say, comedy movie trailers very rarely do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, still a lot of mean people online.
Yeah, it's a weird... It's because I don't really care about the movie. And, that was, my main reaction coming out of it was, in the sort of apathetic one. It was just, I think I realized how much I do not give a shit about a new Ghostbusters movie. It doesn't matter what you do with Ghostbusters at this point. It's it's a comedy movie sequel to a comedy movie made in the 80s. This far out, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, I get that.
But, people, I don't know. It's weird.
I'm interested in the movie because... I actually think they've made one of the smartest decisions they could in doing the female cast thing.
Sure,
because that gives it something different to do with. You have a different set of performers, different kind of thing to do with it, different worldview that you can have in the movie. It's directed by Paul Feig, who is a genius. He has made so much great stuff. If anyone can pull this off, it's him. And, I was always wondering, they're doing it as sort of a reboot, where these are these Ghostbusters do not exist in the same universe as the Bill Murray Ghostbusters.
Although I thought, I didn't necessarily get that impression from the trailer.
That's what they've said. There could be secrets in the movie itself. I agree the trailer doesn't necessarily give that impression, but that's what they've said.
Because, the trailer literally starts by, saying in text, 30 years ago, 4 scientists, saved, which is, 3 scientists and, 1 sane person saved the New York.
Yeah, that is not the impression I've gotten from interviews with Paul Feig. Okay. People. So anyway... I think that's probably a good decision just in terms of letting it be its own thing and maybe just saying we're going to take some of the ideas of Ghostbusters, make a new comedy. That's the best thing you can do with this, not try to, as you say, make a sequel.
Sure,
if you brought back Bill Murray and Friends, that would not be good.
Yeah, so you can't sequel. Anymore.
Well, Harold Ramis is dead. But, they were kicking that around for a long time.
Yes, since Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah, Harold Ramis' death is what finally got this one off the ground, because they definitively could not do that anymore.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, so I hope it's good. I like those performers, like I said. The biggest thing in the trailer for me that I liked to see is that it's Melissa McCarthy in smart and capable mode. And I feel like a lot of people in her movies know her as, loud and kind of obnoxious. And she does that well, too. But I like her a lot more as smart and capable. Partially because the main thing I know her from is Gilmore Girls, where she was a main character for all 7 seasons and not a crazy person. And it's I know her as someone who can play a human being really well, and I think in some of her movies she hasn't done that. So I like in Ghostbusters she's more in human being mode, it looks like. But anyway, so looks fun. Mostly it was just reactions. As you say, I sort of to the trailer, I had no strong reactions either way.
Yeah.
But the internet gets annoying sometimes, was my...
Yeah, the internet has its issues.
Yeah. So, anyway, yeah, that's Ghostbusters. I don't know how deep we even want to go into that. If you want to find people dissecting the disgusting internet analysis of this, you can go find that. That's not what we're here for today, and it would probably be redundant for us to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've got lots...
It's just not a conversation worth having until the movie comes out. That's my biggest feeling about that. It just doesn't... You can't make an argument about it until you actually see the movie, really.
Well, exactly. And even then, if your stance is just, it shouldn't be girls... That's not going to change whether you like the movie or not.
And that's not a stance or opinion worth debating about either way. That's just so infantile.
Yes. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about some other stuff. Sean,
all right,
I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Can I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to get this off my chest because I finished this today.
That's fine. Okay. Do it. You're the one who made the outline. Okay. I don't care if you talk about your stuff first or if I talk about my stuff first. That's completely your choice.
I don't know. Your stuff was first on the outline.
The outline you made. I wasn't I put it there and said, Jonathan, I really need to talk about this Digimon stuff.
Okay.
You can talk about your stuff when you want to talk about it.
So I finished Fire Emblem Fates Conquest today.
Okay.
And I last week reviewed Fire Emblem Fates Birthright.
I remember that, yes.
Brief recap, this is the new Fire Emblem game. It was released in 2 versions, which are really 2 separate games, Birthright and Conquest. They have the first 6 chapters, and they split into 2 branching narratives with different casts of characters and maps and all that good stuff. I said I liked Birthright, but didn't love it. Thought it had some really good stuff, had some more poorly designed stuff. It was kind of an uneasy sequel to Awakening. Fire Emblem Fates Conquest is fucking incredible.
Awesome.
It It's astounding to me, the gap in quality between the two games. And I don't want to be mean and like put Birthright down, but it's fairly clear to me from the writing, from some of the music, definitely from the level design, two teams worked on these. Like, astoundingly clear that two teams worked on these. And I'd known a little bit of that because if you look into some of the interviews they gave, they said pretty clearly they did not have like one writer sit down and write all three games.
Yeah.
They did have different teams working on these. And that's pretty obvious because Conquest, like from the moment you start that, the entire just like conceit of the game is so much more interesting. And again, I don't think Birthright does a bad job, but Birthright is pretty simplistic in that you have the main setup for the game, just to recap, is that you play as Corrin. You were raised kind of in seclusion in the kingdom of Nor, which is this war-hungry kingdom, with your sort of adoptive brothers and sisters, who you don't know are your adoptive brothers and sisters. And you are all kind of uneasy about Nor's tactics. Then at the beginning of Conquest, of Fire Emblem Fates, the war is kind of heating between Nor and Hoshido, and you are kidnapped and taken to Hoshido, where you find out you were actually born there. You are the Prince of Hoshido, and you were kidnapped as a young boy and taken to live in Nor. And so you have to choose now between your birth family and your adoptive family. And if you choose your birth family and Birthright, then it's kind of fighting against Nor, making kind of a last guerrilla stand and taking down Nor and trying to create peace for all. And I think that's not like an inherently uninteresting plot line, but I don't think they do much with it in Birthright. It's kind of just the basic morality of, Nor's doing some bad shit. There's some complex stuff in that these are the people you grew up with, you're fighting, but I really don't think they even push that much in that game. It's one of the bigger failings of that game to me. And then it's a pretty vanilla Fire Emblem in terms of gameplay and all that. Conquest, however, and I said this at the time with Fates, is that I chose to play Birthright first, even though I'd actually bought Conquest first, because I played the first 6 chapters and I thought, if I'm role-playing, I think Corrin would side with his birth family here. So once you get over that hump of choosing your adoptive family, immediately it clicks into place and you realize the logic of doing that. Because, Corrin does that initially because these are his friends and family. This is who he grew up with. This is the only home he's ever known.
Yeah.
But he also thinks that this is the best way to get peace. Like, he legitimately believes he can change Nor from the inside because he doesn't think Hoshido has much of a chance against Nor. And he wants to do something about it, not just leave it be and just have more fighting. Yeah. He wants to see if he can convince his father, King Garen, or his adoptive father, to stop the war, to stop the fighting, see if he can change things. It's clear early on that King Garen has no interest in that, but Corrin keeps trying to change things from his limited perspective of power. So, like, your first... And again, as I said last week, part of why Conquest is so difficult is that Garen is mad at you for what happens in those first 6 chapters. And so he starts sending you on these kind of suicide missions. And so in that first one, you have to go to this ice village, this ice tribe, and try to negotiate peace with them. They don't want to negotiate peace. And so Corrin fights, and Corrin finds a way to non-lethally end the conflict. He tells all his soldiers, never kill. We're not going to kill any of these people. So you fight. And on the map, you still see the people disappear. But you just assume non-lethal blows or something. And
you're all just using tranquilizer darts. It's okay.
Yes. So you start doing this where you're going to wage a war where you do not kill. And still complete King Garen's orders, but do it in a way that is inherently peaceful. And that's a really interesting plot mechanic.
That's a much more interesting story to tell.
Yes. And I think the game just there is no point where the game really lagged for me, no point where it stops paying off on that. It has a lot of interesting twists and turns because the whole suicide mission, conceit, there's about 2 or 3 parts, little mini arcs that go with that. And then at one point, there's this big turn in the game. There's this incredible series of cutscenes and just story pieces in the middle where you and Azura, who is this songstress who is kind of, you'll see in all the marketing, she's the one with the blue dress.
Yes.
And she's in both campaigns. And you go to this other world with her, which I think is going to be the main plot of Revelations. But I haven't gotten to that yet. Anyway, but some stuff happens there. You find out some things. And I'm going to spoil a little bit of Conquest, but I kind of have to talk about the story.
Sure, go ahead.
And you find out that King Garen is possessed in some way by a being from this other world. And
okay, that sounds like Fire Emblem to me.
Yes, and that is why he has decayed so much, done all these awful things that are out of character for him. Because that's the other thing, is that you don't see it, but all of the siblings trust King Garen because he is their father, and he didn't used to be like this, is what you hear. Yeah, and that's a perspective you don't get in Birthright.
And all of a sudden, Saruman gets involved and starts fucking everything up. And then, Eomer's I don't know what's going on anymore. I'm just going to, make a band of Rohirrim and ride around the countryside defeating Uruks.
Man, can you imagine a Lord of the Rings game made in the style of Fire Emblem?
That would
That'd
be pretty
great.
good. Yeah.
Like, by the Fire Emblem people. That'd be good. Anyway. But yeah, so you find out he's possessed, and the only way to show his true self and convince your siblings of this and the world of this is to win the war against Hoshido and have him sit on the Hoshidian throne, because that is there's something magical there. They explain it better in the game.
Yeah,
but once he sits on the throne, this will happen. And so you realize the only way to complete your mission is to go whole hog in on this, pretend to play the role of the loyal soldier, and kind of Corrin still tries to do his not killing people thing, but sometimes he doesn't have a choice, and you're going to go to Hoshido and win this war. And it's such a complex, interesting story, and it's laced into the gameplay so expertly, because you go into every one of those missions with some heavy narrative, weight around your neck. And that's so interesting. And then the level design, and this is why Conquest is so good. Every one of those maps is fucking great. And not just a good, this is good, competent Fire Emblem design, which I think is what I would say mostly about Birthright, and even some parts of Awakening. No, they went all out in trying to find interesting ways to make you play with familiar Fire Emblem mechanics. And this is why Conquest is already infamously hard. This is easily one of the hardest games I've ever played, and I played it on normal, which is the lowest difficulty setting. I played on normal classic, which makes it much harder than if you were doing normal casual or something.
Sure.
I actually found out today, classic cuts off a bunch of other things. On casual, it's not just that your units come back, you can save in battles and stuff.
Oh.
You have more save points and whatnot. So they make it, casual is a lot easier. Anyway, and I can understand, if you wanted to play Conquest on casual, I might not blame you. It's a really tough game. And if you don't know your stuff, you're going to I know Fire Emblem pretty well. I had to do an awful lot of restarting in Fire Emblem Fates Conquest. But the map design is so good. And just as some examples, it's not just route the enemy. Some of them are like that. But they'll usually be more complex, there's one early on that is the hardest map in the game for me, besides the end game, and I'll talk about that in a minute, where you have to survive 11 turns. I was actually talking about this last week. This is the one I was still in, and it took me forever to beat. You just have to survive 11 turns. Sounds easy enough, but the way it's set up, and you have to stop the enemy from getting to this one point while surviving for those 11 turns, and they just keep coming and coming. It is devilishly tough, but never in a way that feels particularly unfair. It's I know I can get my head around this. And when you do, and you beat it with everyone surviving, it is such a rush. And then that carries right back into the story, because what Corrin is trying to do is really tough.
Yeah.
Because on the surface, you would think Birthright would be the tougher game based on the story, because you're the small kingdom fighting the big guys. But when you're the, agent of the big guys trying to change it from within, that is actually harder.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense. And so you have this rush where you feel very at one with Corrin and the characters, because everything you're doing is very tough. But if you can pull it off, it feels worth it in such a very real way. And so I really love that about the game. It is just so involving in that sense. And I still think it has some of the flaws I described with Birthright, of some of the systems from Awakening that come back that don't fit fully. I still think the childbirth stuff and the marriages I'm fine with. I actually think the marriage and relationship conversations make more sense in Conquest, because there is just, the story is built in such a way that there's more downtime and less immediate urgency, so that feels better. The stuff with the kids still makes no goddamn sense. But the kid characters are actually still fun. And that's one of the things about Conquest also, is all of the characters are more interesting. 2 weeks out, could not tell you the names of a lot of the Birthright characters. I really loved the cast of Conquest.
Cool.
And some of them carry over. There's a couple of ones that are the same in both versions, which obviously that's necessary to do. But, mostly different casts, and I think the one in Conquest just blows the other one out of the water. Very interesting. Some of the kid characters that come up, also more interesting. And just the support conversations are so well done. The writing in this game is fantastic. There are some things your older brother in Conquest is named Xander, and so he's the Crown Prince of Nor. He is the one who will inherit the throne when King Garen dies. And so, but he's also very noble and chivalrous, but he's also the guy who is the direct line of ascension to King Garen. So he kind of has the biggest moral conflict in some ways, because he is opposed to much of what his father is doing, but he's known his father the longest. He is going to inherit this kingdom. He doesn't just want to throw it all away.
Yeah.
And so when you get to, spoilers, he does find out what's going on eventually. And when Xander has to reconcile that, some of the writing there is just phenomenal. And I know this Fates on the whole, I've seen there are pockets on the internet who really hate the translation work done on it, mostly because I guess they took out your petting minigame.
Sure.
Boo-hoo, that's not what I play Fire Emblem for. I don't know. I think that goes without saying, but oh well.
Yeah.
I think Nintendo's Treehouse team did a fantastic job on the translations of both of these. They are really just... Like, the text, it's very well done translation. And some Japanese games translated can sound clunky.
Yeah.
This does not at all, and there's some beautiful writing in here. So yeah, on the whole, just Conquest is such a rush. It is such a good game. There are parts where I just got to a point where I would be just completely wiped out after finishing a chapter. But then the next part of the story was so good, I felt like I was reading a novel, and I just had to keep going, except with this novel, I had to stop every couple pages and do a giant, really difficult fight.
That's how all novels should be. Like,
absolutely.
That's if I'm just like reading like a biography about like General Patton, I should have to like go through General Patton's fights and like win them myself before I can go to the next chapter. That just makes sense.
I should say the weakest part of Conquest is the ending. It kind of tries to mirror some of the things Birthright does, where Birthright has this chapter 27, which is the last chapter, and then the endgame chapter, which comes immediately after and has where like the real final villain you have to fight.
Of course.
And it makes sense the way they do it in Birthright. In Conquest, it really does feel like you wrap things up in 27, and then they have to find a way to make you do another fight, because that's just how many there are.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. The story in the end there, like the stuff that makes you do that in the end game, there is some interesting elements there, and some of the scenes that come because of it. Like there are some similarities to how Persona does things in its endgame that Fire Emblem Awakening and Conquest and Birthright have done too, where, you know, for instance, anyone who's still alive on your team, there's a big thing where they all talk to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Sort of like in Persona, all your social links talk to you, which is kind of good because a lot of my people died in Birthright that I let live in Conquest, and so I had a much longer string of text. So anyway, that part's all good, but there's just a little wonkiness in the plot there. And then the endgame chapter, like the final chapter you have to fight, the final fight, is awful. And I hate to say that, but that's the one part where I think they went overboard on... It's just difficult and mean for the sake of being difficult and mean. I don't think it's a very well-designed map. I don't think it's very interesting what they ask you to do. It's really just you have to get from one end of the map to the other and kill the final boss. But there is an insane amount of enemies. They are all way stronger than I think you could ever hope to be. Because remember, Conquest doesn't have grinding.
Right, yeah.
You do what you can do. And I played Conquest really well. One of the things I love about this game is that, so I played Conquest on normal classic. I played Birthright mostly on hard classic. Conquest is still harder. But even then, I played it better. Because the game just rewards you for doing things well. You never can just half-ass it, so you get into a mode where you are really into it, and way more of my team died in Birthright over the course of that game than I let die in Conquest. I even got to a point just realizing who Corrin was in this game and how I wanted to roleplay it. It was like, okay, I'm not letting anyone die. Yeah. And so I went for 24 chapters, wouldn't let anyone die. Finally, I got to a point where pawn sacrifice was necessary.
Sure.
But and the thing is, Corrin realizes that in the story, so I kind of felt justified.
And there's usually one or two characters you find that you're like, you're okay, but you're not nearly as good as these other people. If you die, I'll be a little bit sad, but...
And all of this has asterisk, which is... Yeah. I get to the endgame chapter, and oh god, it is ludicrously tough. So it's, again, the final chapter is really hard, but what they do, and apparently it doesn't do this on casual, but on classic, you have to play the last two chapters, 27 and endgame, without saving. You cannot save in the middle, and for Conquest, that's especially mean because... Every chapter, no matter what, I played a couple times because you just have to get to know the layout of it before you can really take a crack at it.
Yeah.
And that's really mean with the endgame when you have to go all the way back to the really tough chapter you just beat it again. And so I beat chapter 27 actually after only a couple tries, but I think some of it was just the dumb luck that can come with it. And then I went to the end game, got my ass kicked immediately. I'm like, well, fuck, I have to do that whole thing again. And I just thought, I saw that end game and my jaw just dropped. It's like, I'm never going to be able to beat this. I really thought for a second, that's impossible. How are you supposed to beat that? And it was frustrating for a while because then I spent another hour trying to beat chapter 27 again because chapter 27 has a very big dice roll mechanic to it, just in that the enemies and the way you're fighting them, there's a lot of... Your stats are not usually 100 or 90%. It's more like 68% you will probably hit them, and 70% they will probably hit you. And a lot of it was if you don't have your units lined up just right, it's going to rely on luck a lot. So I got really good at chapter 27, though, to a point where I could reliably just beat it no matter what if I made a certain set of moves because I got it. And that was the one that required major pawn sacrifice. Benny and Charlotte, I salute you. What I had to do was send them out so that the enemy would come to them while we were going around the stairs to confront King Garen, and they died noble deaths. But I liked those characters. They got the best deaths, I think, because that was very noble of them.
Yeah, it's a proper sacrifice. They didn't just get butchered on the field because you weren't paying attention.
Exactly, right. So that's the thing. I never let a Fire Emblem character die unless I can have some kind of story reason for it in my head because I get so attached. Anyway, again, asterisk, because then I got to the end game. It was so tough, and I finally realized, all right, if I'm going to beat this, and I don't know if I can. This is the other thing. If you're playing a hardcore classic Fire Emblem game, there are just points where if you get to the end and your team isn't leveled right, you're kind of fucked. That can happen.
Yeah, or you just decided to go through a level and someone died and you're just I'm not going to replay it.
Yeah.
Then you get to the end, it's if I had 2 archer characters instead of 1 right now, this fight would be really easy.
Exactly, that kind of thing. So finally, I got my core characters that were very strong, grouped them together. Luckily, I had done a lot of support conversations, so they had good links, which means they have good defense, and they have higher chance of missing attacks. And basically, the main 2 were Xander and Corrin. We're going to run down the middle together and try to get to the boss. And I picked all my throwaway characters and kind of held them in the back. And so I think you probably have a 14-person team in that. 4 people were alive at the end of that fight. 4 people. And now a lot of the people who died are non-dieable characters. They're ones who will come back not to play with, but they are main.
But they're in the story still,
yeah. So it didn't feel like they had died, and I can just reason, all right, they took some wounds or something.
Yeah.
But Jacob and Percy, who was a little bitch, they all Ivana, some of those they died hard. Because they were there to draw enemy fire. They were so underleveled because I'd never used them. They did not stand a chance. It was a bloodbath.
Nice.
A bloodbath. So, but Kana, who I was very sad died in Birthright for me, she lived. She was one of the 4 who survived that final massacre. So it was
final 4.
Yep, very traumatic. I was amazed when I beat it because I also beat it based on a good dice roll, basically.
Yeah.
Where I had a 10% crit chance, and that paid off. Otherwise, I think I would have been fucked. But anyway, it worked. Beat the game. Great. Not so sure that final chapter is all that well designed.
Yeah, that sounds harrowing.
Yeah. If they would just... There's no reason not to let you save.
Yeah, that sounds like that's bullshit to me.
Because I've had this argument with people, including my brother. I don't think saving gibberish makes a game harder in a good way. It's just gibberish. Letting you save more, I don't really think impacts the difficulty. Yeah. It just means, can you repeat what you did before and just bang your head against a wall?
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially, in that instance of, where, for every other mission, it lets you save right before the mission. You can just repeat the mission if you die. Then, for the last one, you have to do 2 of them in a row without a save in the middle. That's just bullshit.
Yeah, it's I already proved I could do Chapter 27. Let me go on. Yeah. That's kind of my stance on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, Conquest, so good. And it's just some things in the game that I would not expect to be clearly better on the Conquest side are. I think the graphics are more interesting, just some of the art design and layouts are better. I played more of the game with 3D on and just kind of focusing on the visuals because they were so beautiful. The music is better. I think Conquest might have my favorite soundtrack of any Fire Emblem game. Awakening is a tough one to beat, and I'd have to actually listen to the soundtrack when it one day comes out. Yeah. But good God, there's some great stuff in there. Like I said, the writing, just the general... other than that very last level, the game design is just stellar throughout Conquest. And if you had to pick one to play, that's the one I would pick. It is not a good intro for people to the series.
Yeah.
You shouldn't play it as your first Fire Emblem game, but that doesn't necessarily mean I would say you should go play Birthright first. I would still say play Awakening because it's so great and it is a great introduction for people. If you're going to play Fates, I do think ultimately you should play both. I do understand why some people might think they not have time for that.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick, I would pick Conquest. And I'm really interested to see how Revelation goes because... Again, Birthright and Conquest, they don't do the bullshit thing of leaving the story unresolved. They are complete campaigns and complete stories. But there are seeds of what will the story be if we have the true ending, quote unquote. Yeah. And Revelation is the one, it's not out yet, but it's where you don't pick Nor or Hoshido, you pick kind of neither, and you want to try to get them to unite. And I'm really interested to see how that goes, because I think that could be maybe just as good or even better than Conquest, or it could be kind of middling. I'm interested to see how it feels. Because that's the other thing is I don't know how you mix the game mechanics of the two. I don't really think there's a middle ground there. Yeah. So I'm very interested to see what kind of game it is.
Cool.
I might not play it right away. I have played a lot of Fire Emblem. I might need a break.
That sounds extreme, what you've been doing.
So hours. I said last week, my Birthright playthrough capped out. This is from the Nintendo 3DS home screen. They have the software library thing. You can look at your activity log.
Yeah.
So Birthright, I put 33 and a half hours into, and I finished my Conquest playthrough at about 64 hours.
Jesus.
So Conquest is another 30, but remember that doesn't include the first 6 chapters. So Conquest and Birthright roughly spent equal time on them, and Conquest being harder, but it doesn't have the grinding. So overall, I would say you're probably going to spend more time in Conquest in some ways. But Birthright I rushed through parts of that, but roughly equivalent in length. But again, if you're bitching about the price and stuff with this, again, 64 hours. I paid $60 for those two together. More than fair to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot of game.
Sounds like it.
Yes, Fates, jumped all the way to like my number 4 played game on 3DS in terms of hours. And I have some that have a lot.
You played like Persona Q and stuff on the 3DS. So.
Persona Q, which is like 78. I've put 83 hours into Smash Bros. That's my number 1.
That's the most terrifying thing of all.
Yeah. Anyway, but I would expect Fates, once I play Revelation, will be my number 1. That's a lot of game under one heading.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. And the DLC is still trickling out. I have not played this week's DLC or last week's because I was focusing on the campaign. And they are like silly side stories. Yeah. And I just didn't want to interrupt the flow. But I will probably go back and play those at some point. So, yeah, a lot of Fire Emblem goodness. And the 3DS, I think, is going to have a pretty good year. I can see between this and Bravely Second coming out soon and other things this year, I will be playing that system a lot. So, pretty cool.
Cool.
All right. You have been playing some things. Do you want to start with the betas?
Yeah, let's start with the betas. Yeah. So I've played, because this is like, we're recording this on a Sunday night, and so like this weekend, since Friday it was kind of weird that there's 2 open betas on the PS4, both happening this weekend. It was an Uncharted 4 multiplayer beta, which is and both of these betas have been available to like pre-orders or like friends and family stuff or something like that. So this content had been out there for select groups before, but now it's an open beta. So there was the Uncharted 4 multiplayer one, and then a Hitman beta as well.
That's for the Hitman, the episodic one that's coming out?
Yes. Just called Hitman, which is very confusing when I was Googling stuff about the game to try to figure out stuff about it, and just tried to like Hitman PS4, I guess, is like how the only way to like delineate it in a Google search.
This is an annoying thing in modern media. Going back to the Ghostbusters thing, my one legitimate annoyance with this new Ghostbusters movie, you have to call it something other than Ghostbusters. For the love of fuckity Christ, you can't just... It's so annoying to say new Ghostbusters or something like that. It's just confusing. It's like new Nintendo 3DS. I could be talking about a new 3DS that's an old 3DS or the new it doesn't make sense.
Or they could have taken a play out of Microsoft's book and called this Ghostbusters 1. Just title the movie that.
Yeah, but just like Ghostbusters subtitle so that it's at least like searchable. Because if like you search Ghostbusters trailer into Google, you will probably get the new trailer because it's, trending, but you might just get something from the 80s, and that's not helpful right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, and same with Hitman.
Yeah, Hitman absolutely has that problem. And Hitman is such a generic term anyways that it was like trying to find information on this game after I played it because the beta was pretty interesting. Was the most infuriating part about the entire experience. But anyways, I'm going to start with talking about the Uncharted 4 multiplayer beta. So it was basically it was only team deathmatch, and I think it was like 4v4 or 5v5. It was about that many players in a match. And there were 3 different maps. I only got one of them twice. There's a sort of jungly map that had some ruins and stuff on it. That was, I think, the most interesting one. There was another one that looked like it was kind of like in the last E3 demo that was almost sort of like Rio de Janeiro looking like South American city. There was one that was set in an area that looked like that. And then the last one was in a city at night that kind of looked like the heist scene from near the beginning of Uncharted 2. And so those are the 3 maps, and only on Team Deathmatch. And I probably played, I want to say, about 10 matches, and then there I sort of called it. I was having a lot of fun with it, but I decided I don't want to play a lot of this game right now, especially because multiplayer's not what I'm really interested in it for, and I don't want to get sort of tired of the combat by playing it that way too much. But I mean, the long and short of it is I think it's easily the best the combat has ever been in Uncharted. I mean, it's a little bit hard to tell how it will translate exactly to the single-player stuff, because who knows, it'll be so much about the encounter design and enemy AI and stuff. But at least in terms of the shooting in the beta. They did not make it feel like The Last of Us at all, which was something I was kind of curious about.
I was going to ask you.
But it does not. It's like, it feels more like an evolution of what Uncharted combat was before. It does not have that, like, really brutal, like, desperate, sort of like every shot really counts kind of thing that The Last of Us has.
Which is probably good for Uncharted.
Yeah, like, it makes a lot of sense. And so the shooting doesn't quite have the impact that The Last of Us had, but it does have a lot more impact to me than I think the combat had in Uncharted before, where it's like, that was easily my biggest problem with all three of the Uncharted games, was that the combat was okay, but it just never felt like particularly engaging. It never felt like any of like it had any impact or like there was any stake to it. It was just like very light, very floaty, and it was very sort of stale. Get behind a like chest high wall, take cover at one end of the room, and pop up and shoot all like it was like, you know, Pop Goes the Weasel or something, like everyone just like goes pop and shoot them in the head. Someone pops up, shoot them in the head, and you don't do anything else. Here, the combat felt a lot more like what they've always wanted to do. At least, again, who knows how this translates to single player, but in the multiplayer, it was a lot more fluid, dynamic, and there was a lot more movement to it, and it felt like, you know, it's definitely a cover-based shooter still. Like, it has like a full-on cover button, so it's not like dynamic cover like what Last of Us had. But you're not as incentivized to just like stick behind cover and just pop up and shoot guys, because you have like a grappling hook and stuff that you can use on specific grappling points. You can climb up things really, really quickly, and you have a pretty quick movement speed, and your melee is pretty effective. So it incentivizes you to move around the map in creative ways, to like jump around, flank around guys, like grappling hook over people, and if you like, you know, grappling hook and jump off and like land on a dude, you have a cool like punch animation that knocks them down and stuff like that. And you can shoot while you're swinging. You can shoot your pistol when you're like hanging from like a ledge or something, so you can kind of peek up over a ledge and shoot with a pistol. So there's a lot of mechanics in play in the beta to really incentivize you to have a very dynamic, like movement based combat style. And I thought that was really interesting and a lot of fun. And after I like got my like sort of my feet under me after a couple of matches, I really found that really interesting and engaging, because it's very different from The Last of Us multiplayer, but it was like one thing it does feel like it has, it's similar in kind of a different way, is that both The Last of Us and Uncharted multiplayer feel like they ask you to play very tactically. And with The Last of Us, that's more like to be sort of cautious and like kind of sneak around and get behind like enemies and sort of discover their positions and take them out that way. In Uncharted, it's a lot about trying to be tactical in terms of being creative and how you move around the map and flanking behind enemy cover and stuff like that. And all the tools, like the grappling hook and stuff they give you a lot of options to move around the map freely in a very tactical way that I thought was really satisfying.
Yeah. So the other Uncharted games had multiplayer, right?
Yes, Uncharted 2 and 3 both had it. Uncharted 1, I don't believe, did.
Right. So Naughty Dog has done multiplayer before.
Yes.
But obviously more is riding on Uncharted 4 than has ever on a, like, you know, Naughty Dog release. This is the flagship title of the PS4 this year. Uncharted has kind of, it's this homegrown brand that has gone from, you know, sort of a, you know, interesting new IP back in 2007 to kind of one of the flagship PlayStation brands.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be one where I feel like a lot is riding on it on the campaign, but also the multiplayer needs to be more than just a boutique thing on the side. I assume there will be, you know, much more of an expectation of a community growing around this. Does it feel like it has the bones for that?
I think so. It's a little bit hard to tell, because I'm curious about like what the other modes and stuff will be like, because again, like, not only is there only team deathmatch, but like you can't even see a mode list. It's like you just picked like find a match. It was like team deathmatch was the only thing there, in such a way that was like, why do you even make me press this button right here? Like, there's literally nothing else on the screen I could possibly pick. So it's hard to tell how much longevity it'll have from that stuff. But I do think, like, because I stuck with The Last of Us multiplayer for a while, and then when the remastered edition came out, I got back into the Last of Us multiplayer because I found that so interesting.
Well, and everyone agrees that was fantastic, but it had more of kind of a small cult following with it than a massive, you know, like reflecting the sales of that game, I guess I would say. Yeah,
it's hard for me to tell, because I don't think I will get nearly as into the Uncharted multiplayer as the Last of Us stuff, because it's like, because The Last of Us multiplayer was just so unique, and there's no game that has a multiplayer quite like that. And Uncharted's multiplayer, I'm not saying it's like identical to Gears of War, but it feels a lot more equivalent to like third-person cover shooter multiplayer like style games that I've played in the past, compared to The Last of Us, that like just happened to be a third-person shooter with cover mechanics, but that was not what defined that multiplayer to me at all. Here, that it's... I think, like, generic is not the right word, but it's not as sort of unique as that was. But at the same time, it does, I should say, it does have some interesting mechanics that it borrows, like, almost kind of like it has a Counter-Strike-esque quality to it, where over the course of the match, as you get kills and stuff like that, or you can find treasure in the environment, you will accumulate money that you can spend, like, either like in the field or between your respawns on stuff that you put into your class, because there's also a lot of, like with The Last of Us, a lot of versatility in how you build out your class with weapons and perks and stuff. And some of the things you can pick are stuff like these artifacts that you can throw down that are like these magical, like, you know, like the Ark of the Covenant kind of thing in Raiders. That's like one that you get would be like you could throw this thing down and it would like create this totem that would shoot at people in the environment that like you would have to spend like $600 on, which was equivalent to like 5 kills or something, or picking up 2 things of treasure in the environment. Or another thing that was really interesting is you could pick these like I think they called them sidekick characters, which were these people that like would be like there'd be like a gunner sidekick that you could pay for that would spawn in when you spawn, and it would just be this big dude in like body armor and with a heavy like machine gun that would kind of follow around a bit behind you and shoot at enemies in the environment, or there was like a sniper version of that and stuff like that. And so that money mechanic I thought was a very interesting take on like what is effectively the kill streak thing that's been popular since Call of Duty 4, but this felt less like because the kill streak thing has always had the problem of allowing teams that are doing well to snowball their victory to like, okay, well, it's like you have a guy who got like 7 kills in a row without dying, and then he gets an airstrike that lets him to get like 6 more kills, which lets him get like an AC-130 that lets him get like 20 more kills and all this stuff. That Call of Duty has that issue. This is more you can very easily get enough money to get like to use all of the like extra things you have in your loadout, basically, just by picking up treasure that's in the environment if you're dutiful about that. And it allows a lot of like support stuff about reviving people and healing people. So that mechanic was very interesting in how it allowed the team to support one another and allowed you to build out your loadout in a much more unique way than most games do.
Okay, well, cool. I'm glad they're doing these betas. It seems like they're really getting this game nice and polished for when it finally comes out. Yeah. So, all right, what about Hitman?
Hitman was the one I thought was really interesting because I don't have a lot of experience with Hitman. All the personal experience I have with playing Hitman games was downloading the Hitman Blood Money demo on the Xbox 360 and having no idea what the fuck I was doing and just being completely lost and like thinking it's like, oh, this is just going to be some sort of stealth game, and trying to play it like you would a Splinter Cell game or like Metal Gear Solid or something like that. That's not how you play those games at all. But I just couldn't make heads or tails of it. And so I've always been fascinated by it because I know like there's a big like cult community around the Hitman games that I just always wanted to be like understand what it was about those games that people really loved but could never get into it. And so this beta, they basically give you 2 missions that are, I think, like I was reading up on this, I think the beta is like, they're training missions that are set before, like 20 years before when the game actually begins, which, like, when you load up the beta, it starts like a cinematic, and the first thing that happens in the cinematic was like 20 years earlier, which is really confusing to me because like that's literally the first thing. Like that's the first thing you see when you load up the beta. It was 20 years earlier. I was like, 20 years earlier than what? When is this set? 20 years earlier than the last Hitman game? Maybe? I have no idea. All I know is the only thing I know about Hitman lore is that Agent 47 is like a clone or something like that. And he's bald and he has a barcode on the back of his head, which suggests to me that he's some sort of clone. So this is set 20 years earlier than something that happened. And it's so that the 2 missions you have in the beta are basically training missions. One is you have to infiltrate, and it's like, and this is like really a training mission in that it's like all like set up that it's like you have to infiltrate a yacht and kill this dude that's like the guy who owns the yacht basically, and holding this big like fancy party on the yacht with dozens and dozens of people. But it's like it's just set up that way, so it's like a fake boat, and it's like it's not actual water. It's just like it's like depressed into the ground, and they just have like blue tarp all over the place to like simulate water. And so that's your training mission that they like make you like follow very specific steps to assassinate the guy in a very specific way to sort of teach you the mechanics, and then you can do it freeform. And then there's a second mission that's a lot more interesting where you have to infiltrate an Air Force base and kill this guy, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that. So basically, the thing I really liked about it, and I'm really curious about what the full game is going to be like, because they have this weird episodic release model. But what you do in the game is, like, it's not about... And people who've played Hitman games probably already know this, but I had no idea what this franchise was really like. It's not about being, like, stealthy in a, like, Metal Gear Solid 5, like, crawling on the ground and going with, like, your NVGs and stuff. Like, it's all about sort of getting in, like, finding a guy who's, like, oh, this guy is a like, the worker in the dock or something, and I can take this dude out and take his clothes, and now everyone thinks that I'm this guy who works in the dock. And then, like, that allows me to get, like, a little bit deeper into this environment I'm trying to infiltrate, and then maybe I can find, like, oh, like, here's a security guard who's wandering off on his own. Like, I'll take this dude out and take his clothes and leave with, like, a trail of naked men in my wake. Or you should just, like, throw them into, like, a container or something so people find them. But I like just leaving them out there so that someone knew some pervert's walking around stealing everyone's clothes and knocking them out in that order. And so then you, like, have, like, a security guard uniform and you go in and then, like, you can find, like, oh, like, now that I'm, like, on the boat and, like, have a disguise that's good enough that most people are not going to be suspicious of me. Although there's always, like, a couple of people that's, like, the chief of security or something, or, like, the guy who's, like, the head of, like, who hires all the workers, who's going to know that you're not the guy, like, one of the guys he hired or something, that can see through your disguises, and you have to be careful of them. But, like, you get into a position where you're good enough where you can start planning, like, oh, I found this rat poison, and I know that this guy is going to go over to the bar and, like, have his drink, and so I can put the rat poison in his drink and get him that way, or I know that he's going to be standing under this thing that I can use this crowbar to, like, knock off and crash into him at some point. And so, like, the entire game is about sort of going through the mission a couple of times and learning the AI patterns and how people move about the ship and all the things that happen in the environment and, like, the guy's, like, route that he goes through and the ways you can disrupt the route and the ways you can find along the way that you can kill him. And that's, like, really interesting. And I think what's most important about the beta, and I assume this is going to be, like, the tutorial mission of the game and how they present it evokes that at the very least, is that the game does a very, very good job at teaching you that that's the way you're supposed to game. That, like, basically it holds your hand through the first assassination, and then it opens up this thing that, like, after you do the first assassination, a tab that tells you, like, here's all these other ways that you can assassinate this guy, and, like, these challenges you can complete. Like, oh, here, if you, like, assassinate him while you're dressed up as the guy that he's trying to meet, like, that's one challenge you can do. Or if you kill him with rat poison, that's one challenge you can do. Or kill him with the plastic explosive that you can find in the environment somewhere on the level and all that stuff. And that's really helpful for someone who's never played a Hitman game before at letting me understand, oh, like, there are all these opportunities. Like, the one that I kind of want to get back into the beta while I still can and try this is that there was one that said, like, hey, you can drown him in the toilet, and I couldn't find a way to get him near where the toilet is on the ship. I really want to figure out how to do that. And then the second mission, it's a lot harder because it doesn't hold your hand in any way. There's a lot more guards and stuff. But you infiltrating the Air Force Base, I think, is even better because there they introduced this mechanic where instead of the game just telling you up front all the ways that you can do this stuff, you have to find, like, you can like eavesdrop in onto these, like, military personnel talking about, like, oh, hey, I heard that they need to do this, like, safety check on the fighter jet that we have in the hangar, and, like, and you listen in on their stuff, and that opens up this, like, thing they called an opportunity that sort of highlights in the environment a little bit of, hey, if you can probably use this as a way to kill this guy, this fighter jet safety check that he's going to have to do, and so you're going to need to find this kind of costume, and you're going to need to find this clipboard, and, like, mess with the ejector seat, and then when he gets in the ejector seat, and they think that it's disabled, it's not actually going to be disabled, and when he pulls it to, like, test the mechanism, it's actually going to fire and shoot him into the ceiling of the hangar, and that's a pretty cool fucking way to kill someone. Or, like, how I killed him one time was I, like, snuck in and I messed with because he was, like, this chess master or something that was defecting to the Soviet Union, because this happened 20 years earlier than something else that had happened. And so I messed with his chess game that was, like, left on this table that distracted him while I took out this KGB guy that he was, like, meeting up with that he was defecting to, took that guy's costume, and then I just, like, hung out with my target for a while because he didn't realize apparently he was not paying very close attention to what the face of the KGB guy looked like. He only ever notices people's hats. I don't know how, like, the disguise, you have to, like, you suspend your disbelief a fair bit with how the disguise stuff works. But it's really funny to just, like, stand there and have this conversation with this guy as if I was the KGB and, like, because you can, like, listen in on the conversation that they have when you're not involved in, like, you're, like, sneaking and, like, hear what they're talking about, and then through a completely different playthrough, you can take out that KGB dude, become the KGB dude, and, like, have that conversation basically only with you, and find some opportunity where, like, the guard's not in the room to just, like, garrote the dude and take him out and, like, throw him in the back or, like, in a trunk or something, and then, like, make your escape. And so
nice.
that, like,
this game sounds awesome.
It's really interesting. It allows for a lot of really creative ways to play through the game, and I'm sure I didn't find, probably like 6 different ways that you could kill that guy.
Well, and that sounds very classical Hitman to me. I haven't played these, but from what I know of the series, that sounds like what it is. Hitman's interesting, though, because it was this big PS2 era franchise, as I understand it. Like, really popular then. It was pretty dormant for the whole PS3 era. Like, the games came out, but I don't think they were very popular.
Well, because, I mean, Hitman Blood Money came out really early on, and then I think they didn't make another one until Absolution.
Yeah.
Which was, like, at near the end of those consoles' lifespan.
Yeah, and no one really paid attention to that one, I think.
Yeah, because that was the one where they tried to make it, like, a more traditional stealth game, it seemed.
Okay. But so this one feels like a good relaunch. It sounds like it's very important, as you say, the tutorial aspect, because it's attracting gamers like you and me who have never played these games.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, so the big question mark above all this is the episodic nature of it.
Yeah.
And it starts coming out next week, March 11th. Mm-hmm. Are you going to play it then, or would you want to wait?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Like, it sounds interesting. It depends on, like, honestly, like, if I'm still playing Digimon at that point, or, like, if, like, something else has grabbed my attention. This does, I think, like, the episodic idea for the game does make a lot of sense for me, because these levels are levels that you're meant to play through a bunch of different times, and, like, they're playgrounds that you're meant to sort of, like, find all the rules and all the ways you can break the rules. And so, like, that idea does sound appealing to me, of having, like, oh, like, here's, like, 4 different environments and stuff, and you can, like, play through them a bunch and, like, get your fill of them, and then put the game down for, like, a couple of months, and then we release, like, a new pack of, like, all these different missions and stuff. That does sound appealing to me. That seems like an interesting way to sort of package the game that does take advantage of what that game does really well.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see, you know, when it starts coming out next week, what the pricing is, how it's reviewed, all of that stuff, because this could be a really cool game.
Yeah, definitely. At least on the beta, like, I am way more interested in this game now than I was going into the beta. Like, I just downloaded the beta, started playing it more out of a sense of, like, well, we're going to do the podcast in a couple of days, so it's like, this is something I could talk about, so I might as well play it because it's for free, and I can only do it on this weekend. And then, like, after I beat that training mission, when it took the training wheels off and I got to beat it on my own, and, like, found, like, interesting ways to do that, I was like, oh, there really is something here that I just never knew what these games were.
Yeah, I thought about playing both of these betas this weekend, and then it was, no, too much Fire Emblem to play. Yeah. But no, I'm glad you did. But speaking of cool games,
yes,
do you have anything more to say about Digimon?
Man, that game is so fucking good.
I want to stop you just before. We can't have, like, a full hour of Digimon this time.
Okay,
just so you know.
Yeah, I don't need to do that. I mean, okay. Because it's either at this point it's like 20 hours of talking about it, or it's like 15 minutes of talking about it.
Okay, well, what do you want to say about Digimon?
Mostly that I'm at chapter 15 at this point of, I think there's 20 in the game, so it's like the ending is sort of in sight. Although I don't know how, like, some of the like, one chapter was like 15 minutes long and one chapter was like 5 hours long. So it's like, it's hard to gauge how much 5 chapters is left in the game. But I'm basically at the point in the game where halfway through at chapter 10, the up to that point, and I talked about this a little bit last week, the story was okay and some of the characters were interesting, but it was very meandering, and it never... Because it's just like no goal had ever really presented itself. Like, there were a couple of mysteries in the background that you were, like, sleuthing it up about, but you didn't. There's like a vaguely villainous figure in the background, and that was about as much as the sort of, like, main plot had really manifested up to that point. But once you get to, like, chapter 9 and then really chapter 10, the plot kicks into high gear in a way that's fucking insane, and all of a sudden, a lot of the sort of dawdling, meandering story structure and stuff in, like, character development really starts to pay off. Where at this point, like, the main cast of this game have some really fascinating character arcs that I'm really invested in. Particularly, I talked about her a little bit last week. This one character, Nokia, who she's like she's a really fascinating character because she has that tendency that some JRPGs have that have basically a silent protagonist, which is your character is basically silent. Like that, like there's generally, or sometimes there's one character in the cast that is actually really the main character, like the main character of the story, and that because of the way that you're silent, and she's basically that. And like the journey of seeing her go from this really normal high school girl from the beginning of the story that's like just like curious about this rumor that you go check out, and like I talked about the setup for the plot last week, and going from this normal high school girl to now she has become basically like this leader of this movement of trying to like liberate Digimon and like trying to bridge the gap between humans and Digimon because bad shit is going down in the world and humans and Digimon are not feeling it. They're not happy. They're not hanging out. Bad shit's going on, and she's like the one who's really taken the initiative to do that in the story. And I thought that transition felt really natural and really interesting. And there's some other developments with the other characters that I've become really invested into in a way that I did not expect, even talking about it last week, that I enjoyed the story for what it was. But now after chapter 10 and when like stuff like really happens and you get this like really clear goal of like a problem that needs to be solved and you and your friends are the only people that are like really equipped to try to be able to solve it, like it's gotten really fun, like that, the plot side.
It sounds like a good season of TV in that you have kind of like episodic for a while and you're just building the characters, and then at a certain point it kind of coalesces and you realize the goal, and then it's kind of full steam ahead to the end. It
does have that quality because it's also, it has that weird thing where then when I was like playing around like chapter 12 and then it was like, man, stuff has gotten really dark in this game, and I was thinking back to this like parts of the game that when I was playing them I was sort of like bored about of like these wacky little side cases you went on in solving problems that are like, oh, this, because some of the side quests of this game are so silly, of like, oh, this Digimon hacked into like basically this universe's version of Wikipedia and changed all the articles about like Osaka style culture in a way that was like written all in Osaka like accent. And so it's like,
this sounds like the greatest game ever made.
It's really like, it's some of the, but like at the time I was like, I enjoyed those side quests because they were so goofy, but at the same time I was sort of like, well, when is like, what's going on in the main plot? And now that like stuff has gotten so dark, I'm like thinking back to this, like, oh, those are the good old days when like I was just going in and like some dude who was running a boxing fan site hired me because his site kept on getting hit by like all these views, and he could like, and was basically taking the site down. He's like, I don't understand what's going on. And you go into the website because you digitize, and you find out that it's a bunch of Digimon that are these little, like, they're like bipedal dog guys that have boxing gloves on, and they're all like have gone into because they're digital monsters, so they're in the website, and they're just watching all these boxing videos all the time in the website, which is causing it to crash, and you have to challenge like each of them to a one-on-one fight to be able to get them to be like, hey guys, calm down. You can be fans of boxing and watch your boxing videos, but like don't take this one dude's site down. You're like, it's getting too many views and he doesn't know what to do with it. So it's like there's that stuff that's like really fun and goofy. But there's also, I just have to talk about, there's this one side quest that I really need to talk about because those are the last two I talked about are like the memorable examples of what is generally what the side quests are like. Like the tone is like there's some silly wacky problem involving technology and some Digimon has caused it, and you have to go like into into a dude's cell phone or into someone's laptop or into the internet, into the website, and find the Digimon, find out what the problem is, and solve it, and that's it. But there was one side quest that starts off with these people that were involved in another case coming back to you and saying, like, there are these people that are selling these, like, very realistic, like, dolls that look exactly like us. It is like, okay, this is already a really creepy setup to a quest. And as you start investigating it, you find out that it has to do with this, like, 3D printer kind of thing that's at an arcade that, like, scans your body and makes a little tiny action figure of you, and it's supposed to be fun. But then some company is taking the measurements from that and, like, the 3D body scans from that and making, like, weird, what are presumably sex dolls. Like, it never is ever explicit about any of the stuff I'm talking about. But it's like, there's no other way to interpret what's going on. And so you're investigating this company that's doing this, and then you start finding out that, like, oh, there's something even deeper going on here, that there are these like young men that are being asked by this like creepy business guy, because you kind of get in this situation where when you're investigating, this business guy comes up and asks you, find out this is happening to all these young men around this town. That he's basically gives you a deal of like is trying to sell you these like very realistic dolls of people that they're making off these body scans, and then they also offers like, oh, but also we have this other service that you can sign up for that like basically you can live with the girl of your dreams. Like you just tell us who you want, like your ideal woman, and we can make her for you, and she will live with you, she will take care of you, she will acquiesce to everything you ask of her, but all you have to do is stay in, like, this room, and you just can't leave the room. But you don't need to, because, like, she will take care of you. And it's like, so you find out that there's this, like, guy going around asking, like, lonely young men and giving them this proposal. And so you start investigating that, and eventually you find a way into this private room in, like, the cyberspace server where there's this guy surrounded by women, and you talk to him, and you're like talking to this, like, why are you doing, like, what are you doing here? Like why are you like in this room with like all these like women in like the virtual world? And he goes, I don't know, like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the real world. I'm in the real, like, how did you even get in my room? Like, I can't leave my room. If I leave my room, I lose all these women. Like, this is my life. Like, get out of here. And you're like, and like, he just won't respond to you, and you have to leave, and you start talking to your sexy detective lady boss. And she starts telling you, it's like, oh, like, we found out, like, this is some, like, company overseas is doing all this stuff, and we don't know exactly what they're doing, like, because we're, like, all these guys think they're living in the real world, but actually their consciousness is in, like, cyberspace, and we don't know what's happening to them, and we don't know where any of their bodies are, because their, like, consciousness is in cyberspace, and nobody knows where they actually are, because they're just living their life in this cyber room thinking it's the real world. It was like, this seems really fucked up, and there's kind of nothing we can do about it because we're just this private detective agency, and it's being run by a government, like some foreign country. And so the end of the quest is, and it does this a couple of times with some of the side quests, where it cuts away from your character and shows like the resolution from another character's perspective of like what's going on, that they're involved with the case. And so at the very end of the quest, and this is the last I have heard about any of this stuff up to this point, maybe it comes back, is it cuts to the dude in cyberspace who thinks he's in the real world with all these attractive women, the women of his dreams, and you like text him to say, it's like, man, you have to log out, like, we don't know what's going on, but like, just do it, just trust me, just log out. And you send him that message, and so that it cuts to the guy who's like this guy's crazy. Like, this, I'm not in the virtual world. I am in the real world. I know it. And then he's like, but I mean, no, this is silly. And he like looks at, he takes out his like digital device or whatever it's called and starts messing with it. He's like, this is ridiculous. But I'm just going to wait. What do you mean I can't log out? But it says log out here. So it's like he knows he's in the digital world. It's like, but I keep on hitting it and it says like, I can't log out. Like, there's nothing to log out
so it's
into.
Like, it's the Digimon equivalent of the Twilight Zone.
Kind of, but like the entire implication is that there is this government that is kidnapping young men who have uploaded their consciousness into the digital world, stealing their bodies, and taking their organs. Because the assumption is that he has nothing to log out into, Jonathan.
Oh, God.
His body is dead, and his consciousness is trapped in cyberspace for eternity.
I just want to say, these 2 weeks challenging all my assumptions about Digimon. I just thought Digimon was a fun cartoon with monsters.
It was a fucking kid's show. I don't know what happened, and no other quest in this game is anywhere near that dark. It was, but it's really good. Like, the storytelling of that quest is really solid.
Okay, but
it's scary. That game goes places, man. It's really good.
So to wrap up this segment, can I ask you some questions?
Sure, go ahead.
So first, kind of the main thing. Oh, well, I'll go back to last week because I was really wondering what the response to our Digimon episode would be.
Okay, yeah.
It prompted one of the longest comments we've ever gotten.
Great.
From an enthusiastic
It deserves it, presumably.
So Levi commenter said he loved this episode. He said, I had randomly picked up Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth a couple days before listening to this. Haven't had a chance to play it yet. Question, what difficulty is Sean playing it on?
Oh, I'm glad he asked, because I was actually going to bring this up. Right now I'm playing it on hard, but how I started, and this is how I would suggest you play it, is start it off on normal and play on normal for the first few chapters until you sort of get like understand the combat system and stuff like that, and get your Digimon up a couple of levels. And then once you sort of like understand the system and your Digimon are a little bit overpowered, because normal is very easy, especially like you out level the normal difficulty very quickly. I would suggest at that point you do what I did, where you bump it up to hard, which that also has the benefit of you getting more items and more money, and it makes particularly the boss fights a lot more interesting. And it also means that the random encounters you don't just sort of like breeze through, because the fighting in this game is actually really entertaining, and you need to have the fighting to be fun, because that's the only thing that makes making a wide variety of Digimon really valuable. So yeah, like I would recommend playing it on normal at first, and then once normal becomes very easy, bump it up to hard, because then you're enough ahead of the curve that hard is not brutally difficult, and you can keep ahead of the curve and have that. I found that's a really nice difficulty, because the combat in this game, it's not like a lot of other JRPGs where the combat you just kind of like want to breeze through. Here, I think the combat's like a really, really important part of the game that I've still not gotten tired of at this point.
Nice. Well, Levi, let us know if that helps. He was saying, I'm just there to catch all the Digimons, so I'll probably just play on normal. But it sounds like you could do both and play on hard.
Yeah, and that's also another thing that's fun about this game that sets it apart from Pokemon. It is a lot easier to get Digimon, and like, because I don't have currently, but like I have had like filled out my entries in like my Digimon like encyclopedia or whatever for like I think about like 170, and there's like 260 something in the game. So like yeah, that's. But if you want to get all the Digimon, I would also say like you probably also want to like use a lot of the Digimon, and playing it on hard once you get to those later difficulties. That's what I would recommend.
Nice. Levi's other comment, he left two because he forgot something. He said, "Oh, and if Sean hasn't already, he should watch the new Digimon Adventure Try movies."
Okay.
He said they poorly released his 4-episode stateside. Said the second movie comes out soon. Ty and Matt and the whole squad grow up, well, to Persona character age. It's really good. The nostalgia is real. In actual fact, I think the Digimon cartoon anime and Persona 3 and 4 share a decent amount in common. The first few seasons at least. Highly recommend both series. So, thanks for the comment, Levi.
That's another great comment and a great point. It's something that like I was thought to bring up, but I thought like there's been a lot of Digimon talk. I didn't want to necessarily flood this podcast with Digimon. But I have watched Digimon Adventure Try, because they, like you said, they sort of like basically released it in a movie format, and the next movie's coming out next week. And it's good. Like, it's not amazing. It's a lot better than Digimon Adventure 2, which was the original cartoon follow-up to the first Digimon Adventure that had like kept the old cast, but like introduced a new cast that were really the main characters, and the old guys were sort of like supporting characters, but the new kids were not that interesting. And it's an interesting follow-up that I think has some sort of budget issues in certain parts where like the animation doesn't look that good, but then in some of the fight scenes, the animation is great. But yeah, if you're someone who grew up watching the original Digimon Adventure cartoon, I would highly recommend watching Digimon Adventure Try. It does have a weird thing where you have to get over the change of like because obviously I didn't watch Digimon in Japanese because it was not available in Japanese when I was a kid, and I wouldn't, because it was a kid's cartoon. I wasn't going to watch it that way when I was like 8 years old. But since it was a kid's show, and it was a kid's show in the late 90s, the dub for that like changed a bunch of characters' names, changed some Digimon names, changed like all the attack names, and had different music. That like now that I've seen some of the original Digimon stuff, the original Digimon music is way better and actually really good. And the like American version we got, it's like the shittiest late 90s like faux rap hip hop, just terrible. Like it's aged awfully. And yeah, like so with Digimon Adventure Try, you have to get over like, oh, this character's name is Taichi, not Tai. This is Yamato, not Matt. Joe is still Joe. Joe's always been Joe. His name never changed.
Nice.
But, yeah.
All right, well, cool. So, and then my only other question, to kind of tie it up.
Okay.
This sounds like it's just a really good JRPG. Do you really need to have any Digimon experience, or is it just a good game? Can it stand by itself?
I think it's just a good game. Like, because the story stuff has nothing to do with the Digimon cartoons. Like, you don't need to know anything about that to get, like, any of the story stuff. Like, obviously, the Digimon are the Digimon, and a lot of the Digimon in the game are from that original cartoon because they're the most iconic. But, like, most of the Digimon in the game, I have no idea who they are, where they come from. Anything that's not from the first cartoon, the second cartoon, or, like, the main, like, 3 Digimon from the third one, I have no idea what any of them are. And so that's, like, more than half that are in the game. And I think, yeah, like, they're just, like, cool monsters. It's no more I think like just starting with this game and getting into it is no more different than you just picking up like the newest Pokemon game and never having seen like the Pokemon anime or played any of the old Pokemon games. Like it's not any different to me at all.
Nice. So I will probably play this game at some point. You have talked it up enough. And you and I have pretty similar taste in games. So
yeah, especially like now that I've gotten to this part in the game where the story has really picked up, I would highly recommend it for anyone that like enjoys that kind of like JRPG, like Pokemon, sort of like Persona-esque JRPG style.
Well, and really what I'm looking forward to is I want to buy the game, play it, and then I want to get to a point where I've played enough of it that I can go back and listen to last week's podcast and see if I can make sense of anything you said.
It'll all come together, man.
Okay.
You should, because like there's a lot of stuff in that is valuable information for you that first time you're playing the game, you won't know how to do some of that stuff, and I lay it out last week.
Awesome. Well, we had some movie stuff to talk about. Why don't we hold that till next week?
Okay, fair.
Because we need to move on, and I might see those movies, so
yeah,
we can talk about all that. But let's go ahead and move on and do our Pokemon topic.
Again, what are Pokemon?
All right, so Sean, we've got a lot of different Pokemon-related topics to talk about today.
Okay.
It's the 20th anniversary. We'll do some retrospective stuff soon. I want to talk about, for the moment, though, the present of Pokemon.
Okay.
And some news we held back from last week. So the two big things is that last week, they, for the 20th anniversary, re-released Red, Yellow, and Blue on the 3DS. And I've played those, and I want to talk about them. And then they announced the new Pokemon games coming out this year for the 3DS, Pokemon Moon and Pokemon Sun. So, yes. Moon and Sun. I'm surprised I never guessed they would go there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like every Pokemon game title since like probably like Ruby and Sapphire has sort of surprised me in like, oh, like I keep on feeling like they're kind of running out of these, and they keep on like, X and Y was the one that felt like the biggest stretch. X and Y felt like, you're just making up bullshit. Like, that's not even, like, anywhere near the framework that you like introduced with the first few games. But yeah, Sun and Moon feel like those are Pokemon game names. I can get behind Sun and Moon.
Yeah. And they have not released any details on these games. I think we saw a brief amount of gameplay, and there was stuff like cars in it, so I don't know if that'll be a new mechanic or something. That could be fun.
Yeah, but it should be like that one Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime where like they play Yu-Gi-Oh! On motorcycles, but instead it's with Pokemon and cars. Have you seen any of that? Like,
oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
okay.
It's nuts.
Yeah,
but I like that comparison. I never thought that could be a Pokemon.
It was just the first thing I thought of when you said that they're cars.
Well, I'm interested to see this because, they did X and Y. They didn't do what they did with Black and White and do like a X2, Y2 or anything.
Right.
So they did the Ruby Sapphire remakes, but I assume the XY team has been hard at work on this for several years now because it's been a while since X and Y. It's notable it is coming out for the 3DS, so if the NX is some kind of, hybrid with portable, they're not jumping there right away. That's not an indication, I wouldn't say, because Pokemon has always been kind of agnostic to that. Like Gold and Silver came out, I think the Advance was already out. So they just tend to make the games and kind of just let the hardware be the hardware. They're not that aggressive with it. But this is exciting because we're going to talk about today about some of the stuff where Pokemon has fallen from glory in some ways. X and Y are phenomenal games, and they are some of the best games you can get on the 3DS, and that's saying something because the 3DS has, pound for pound, I think just the best game library of a currently supported system. It's fantastic. And, X and Y are really good. They're probably, if I'm being completely honest and taking my nostalgia goggles completely off, the best Pokemon games since the first, and maybe even better in some of the things they do mechanically, and some of the improvements they make that the game series has always needed. And I think if it is a sequel to X and Y, but also hopefully has that same spirit of innovation in some ways and makes some other changes that could still be made, like more than 4 moves, it could happen. It could happen. I am definitely excited, though, because that feels like maybe this will be the swan song for the 3DS. I don't know, but I'm very excited we're getting new ones. And it's kind of funny because at the time when X and Y were coming out, I was pretty burned out and really only played them because the reviews were so good.
Right.
So I'm glad to be excited again.
Did they ever make a Pokemon Z? Did that happen?
Huh. They abandoned that after Platinum with Diamond and Pearl. That was the last one that did that. Black and White never had like a gray. They did Black 2, White 2, but they never did like the third follow-up. Sure. Yeah. So they've gone away from that, which is probably for the best. I like some of those, like Yellow is cool, Crystal is cool, but at a certain point, they're kind of redundant.
I mean, at a certain point, it just became, I'm not going to buy this until next year when they release the one that you can get all the Pokemon in one game with.
Yeah. No, a good point, yes. So, anyway, that's that news. And then I wanted to talk briefly about the 3DS re-releases, because they're really disappointing.
Oh.
It's too bad. Like, I like having those games, but honestly, if I were, with the except Yellow, I would probably play this way on my 3DS, because it's virtually the same as if you played it on the Game Boy. But it's a problem the 3DS has had for a while with its virtual console releases of Game Boy games, and it never bothered me until Pokemon. But basically, even though these are priced, so if you don't know, they released Red, Blue, and Yellow on the 3DS as virtual console releases. And they were priced at $9.99 instead of the usual $4.99, so double the price.
Yeah.
And given kind of this big marketing push, and we knew they would have one new feature, which is that you would be able to wirelessly trade and everything, so the multiplayer was still in there, which is not the case for most virtual console releases, understandably. I wouldn't say that's a flaw in, emulation, that you don't try to fix, and get multiplayer working. But they wanted to do that, so that was kind of cool. So I kind of thought they might go all out and do some special things, and it's really half-assed. It's basically just Yellow is a separate thing, we'll talk about that in a second, but for Red and Blue, and I should say I bought Yellow and Blue, because I've never played Blue, so I thought I'll get Blue.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah, and so I just got those two, because really I didn't want to play both of them, but I wanted to test it and talk about it on the podcast.
You can never have, having a copy of the original Pokemon games with you is never a bad thing.
No, and they're cool. So, but basically, Pokemon Blue, which I assume it's identical for Pokemon Red, it's just a normal Game Boy Virtual Console release, and that means it's in black and white. It has some cool features, like you can, if you hold down Start or Select while it's booting, it'll run in its original resolution, and it puts this little Game Boy frame around it. I always love that. That's really cool, because also if you turn the 3D on, it looks exactly like it does on the actual Game Boy screen, where it's in there a little bit.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of neat. And then you have it at its original resolution, but you don't feel like you're wasting space on the screen.
Yeah.
So either way, it looks good. But that's true of all Game Boy Virtual Console releases, and you can hold down L, R, and Y and change to the original green chromo scheme, because that's how it looked on the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
Now, I never played an original Game Boy, so there's no nostalgia there for me, but I know it's there for a lot of people.
Sure.
But here's the thing. I have never played Pokemon Red or Blue in black and white. And I don't necessarily have a problem with it, except that those games, when they came out here, the Game Boy Color was already out.
Yes.
I would venture a guess that most people who played those games played them on the Game Boy Color.
I certainly did.
Pokemon Red to me is red. Pokemon Blue to me is blue.
And when you say that, everything in Pokemon Red is red. Pikachu is red.
Yeah.
The grass is red.
Yep.
Your character is red and is probably named Red unless you want to come up with your own name.
Everything's red, and in blue it's all blue. Or on the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance, you could do all those different color schemes, which are so cool. You could pick any of them. They're like tinting. Because it's honestly, it's like old black and white silent films where the games are just rendered in black and white. That's how they made them, and there's nothing wrong with that. But people like color, and just like in old black and white films where they would tint the movies, I think a lot of people today don't know this, most silent films were never shown in black and white. They were shown in some tint. Yeah. And the tint means it's just everything was kind of one color.
Yeah.
And it's honestly like playing Pokemon Red or something like that, if you look at some of those old films. And it's the same with those Game Boy games. So there was a default color scheme if you played it on the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance where it was just all red, all blue. So on the new one, it's just black and white. And it shouldn't bother me as much as it does, but it does bother me, especially because they charge as much as they did for it. It's always bothered me that the Game Boy emulators on the 3DS don't have those color options, because it just feels a little half-assed to not do it, because I don't know how, if the Game Boy Color could do it, you can't do it on the 3DS. There's probably an explanation, but it's not good enough. That should be there. And if you're only paying $4.99 for Metroid 2 and you have to play in black and white, I think that's okay.
Sure.
That's not an exorbitant price point. $9.99, they should have done something more with that, especially because they also took out all the other Virtual Console features like save states. You can't do that. You can only use the in-game save and stuff, and that's a defining thing of Nintendo's Virtual Console. So really, it's identical to other Virtual Console releases. And the only added thing is that it has, the multiplayer, which is a big deal, but I don't know if that's and it has Pokemon Bank connectivity, which is cool. So you could get your Charizard from, Pokemon Red and bring it into X and Y or Moon and Sun. And that is really cool. I won't say it's not, but I also just wish I could play it with the color tinting, Well,
you just go out to a hardware store, find a little red transparent piece of plastic, and cut out the right shape, and tape it onto your 3DS screen, and there you go. Everything looks red.
Yes. Well, and it's, I still have my Game Boy Advance SP. I still play it sometimes. I've got my red cartridge. I've got my yellow cartridge. I can play it whenever I want. So it's like, and I would obviously prefer to play on my 3DS because I've got it on me more. Mm-hmm. It's easy. It's just modern, all that stuff. Bigger screen. But it's a little disappointing in that way. And then yellow just runs as a Game Boy Color game. So it's got its color scheme, because Game Boy or Pokemon Yellow was technically a Game Boy Color game. You could play it on the original Game Boy, and it would render in black and white. But if on Color, it has more colors. Some of it's mostly just tintings. It's got the red, blue, and green tintings, but also some more complex ones. So. But the thing is, I kind of, if I were going to go back and play special Pokemon, I wanted to play Red or Blue, because then I could pick my starter and all that.
Yeah.
I like Pokemon Yellow. You can get all the starters, which is cool. But I wanted to kind of do classic vanilla. And doing classic vanilla in black and white, it kind of, if nothing else, what it does is it has underlined to me that those games have not aged well. And I really love Red and Blue, but we're going to talk about this later. I've played it more recently as Fire Red and Leaf Green on the Advance. And those are some of my favorite game remakes ever. That's like the perfect way to play those. The graphics are beautiful. They didn't muck with anything that made those games great, but they also improved them in some ways. That's the ideal way to play that. It is kind of tough to go back to the original Game Boy version, especially when it's more stripped down than what I know from my childhood.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my source of disappointment. I think if you were going to get one, you could get Yellow, and I think Yellow they did pretty much perfectly, because it's tough to fuck that one up because it's already in color.
Yeah.
But Red and Blue, a little disappointing, especially given the hype. I mean, they spent months hyping this release, and you couldn't even get the tint. That's kind of the one that's like, it's just a virtual console release. You just didn't, Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it felt weird that, like, them trying to hype it up in that way regardless, because it's like, I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, I love Pokemon Red and Blue to death. They're some of my favorite games. They're one of the first games I really fell in love with. At the same time, like, those games are fucking old, and it's not exciting that you're re-releasing it on your virtual console system. Like, the prospect of, like, hey, I'm going to buy this game I already bought when I was a kid again and play it on the 3DS in a way that's slightly inferior, apparently, to how I used to have it. That's not exciting to... No, how is that exciting to anyone?
Well, that's too bad, because also, like, I would be personally way more excited if they did, like, on the Wii U, for their where they have Game Boy Advance, if they released Fire Red and Leaf Green there. Because those are such gorgeous Game Boy Advance games. Or Ruby and Sapphire. Some of those. Or even, honestly, if they did Gold and Silver, because the Game Boy Color, those graphics are so great. Like, the Game Boy Color on Pokemon games, I think have all aged very well graphically, with one exception we'll talk about later. But Red and Blue kind of are just right before that cusp. And their re-release is, of all the Pokemon games you could re-release that are re-releasable, not like DS ones, that's the least exciting to me. So, oh well. But, let's go back to the beginning. Okay. And let's start our retrospective. I have some lists we're going to go over later, and I think that'll be the bulk of this. But for now, let's just keep it kind of free-form.
All right.
Sean, Pokemon has so many things about it we could talk about. There is a TV show. There's 17
a very,
movies.
very long-running TV show.
There are
the TV show that will outlive us all.
There are over 17 movies. There are many, many games. And we're not just talking about the main you go catch your Pokemon games. There are spin-offs.
Pokemon Stadium.
Pokemon Stadium.
Pokemon Stadium 2000.
Hey You Pikachu. Pokemon Snap.
Fuck yeah, Pokemon Snap.
Pokemon Channel. Remind me to talk about that later. All this stuff. But I guess we just have to start at the beginning. Sean, how did you get into Pokemon?
Well, it was... I can't remember the year. I was very young. And like we talked about a little bit on last week's podcast, like, Pokemon was a game that, like, I had to sort of learn to read to really be able to play. And so I was young enough to, like, not really be able to read yet when I got it. And I remember it was an Easter, and my brother and I both got Game Boys, and I got Red, and he got Blue. And we got them, like, then because we were going to go on a trip somewhere over the summer. And so our parents got them for us so that... presumably we wouldn't fight over the course of the trip. I have memory recalls that never panned out because my brother's an asshole. Fuck him, and we're going to fight if we're in close proximity for too long. That's just going to happen. It's like matter and antimatter. It just occurs. But, like, you know, getting that Pokemon game and just, like, sort of, like, exploring that world. I remember that game in the same way I kind of remember playing Ocarina of Time and stuff like that, where it was so much about this a sense of exploration and discovery, of not knowing what any Pokemon were. Like, the first time I saw Pikachu was like when I saw Pikachu going into the woods right by your house, after you beat the first gym. Like, it's all that stuff. It's all that, like, Charmander and Squirtle and Bulbasaur. And it's like, I just get to pick one of these, and of course I'm going to pick Charmander, because Charmander's really fucking cool. And so you pick Charmander, and it's like, and then you go into the forest, and it's like, oh, there's all these creepy little bug Pokemon, and most of them, all of them suck. They're all terrible. Like, who gives a shit about, like, Weedle and Caterpie, like, the worst Pokemon imaginable. But, like, before that, you get a Pidgey. Pidgey seems pretty cool. I've always had a strong fondness for Pidgey because he can fly, and flying is a very useful thing later in that game. And it was that stuff of, like, all that stuff of, like, getting cut and being able to cut down the tree, getting Flash, and being able to go through Mount Moon. Like, the original Pokemon game captured that sense of the adventure you were on, and, like, you going around and, like, having all your Pokemon buddies and going out into the woods and going out on your own and abandoning your family when you're like 10 years old and never looking back again. It's like, see ya, Mom. It's never happening. Apparently I had like an abusive childhood or something bad happened because I am never talking to my family again. I'm never coming back to Pallet Town. This is a fucking shithole. I'm going to go hang out with Misty in like Cerulean Village or whatever. It's all that stuff. Like that for me was really what captured my imagination with Pokemon. And it was that exact same quality that then later Pokemon games never had that. I could never recapture that magic again because because the new Pokemon were never as interesting. I already knew all the mechanics. I already knew the cut. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, like have a rock gym. We're going to have like a water gym, and like there's going to be a fire gym at some point. It's like, fire. Like I know all the types basically. It's like you get 4 moves, and you get another move. Like 1, 2, poof. I have to forget one, and then replace my move. You go through all that rigmarole once, and it's all amazing the first time, and you're like discovering all like this entire process and this whole world. And like Gold and Silver, I enjoyed. But then it was like, but I never beat it. Like, I never even got close to beating any of the later Pokemon games, like, past the first one. Because it was like, every time it was like, this is good, but it never is as good as I remembered those first games being. And then, like, the next year, like, the next generation's games is, like, the same thing. And then I think, because that would be Ruby and Emerald, and I, like, dropped off, or Ruby and Sapphire, and I dropped off basically after that. Because it was like, it never evolved enough for me to recapture that sense of discovery, but I can still, like 2 or 3 years ago, I went back and played through most of Pokemon Red again on my Game Boy Advance SP with my original cart, and, like, I still love playing through that game because my nostalgia of it allows me to recapture a sense of that wonder because I have memories of that wonder, and, like, never being able to rediscover that in other games because it's like, it's not there for me to discover anymore. That's for, like, the kids who are like 3 years younger than me. That's like their game.
Yeah.
That's always been the sense I've had with Pokemon.
And, it's worth saying while we're talking about that original game, how thoroughly well designed that game is.
It's that game one of the best games ever made for like its time. I will fight for that to the death.
Oh, I just think the way it rolls things out, the design of how you go, where you go, and where it kind of funnels you, but with this sense of openness to it where you do feel like you're exploring. I mean, it is kind of an early open world game.
Yeah.
But, with more direction, which is how I like open world games, so I think it works well. It suggests so much with so little, with such minimal graphics. It really feels like you're out there adventuring. Yeah. I really think it's kind of like, the original Legend of Zelda, where Miyamoto talked a lot about how he was inspired by, the forests in Japan that he would go, playing as a kid, or he would wander as an adult, and he kind of put that into the game. And people who played it at the time really have memories like that of it being this adventure that suggested so much with so little. I think Pokemon does the same thing. And, I just replayed it this year as Leaf Green. I played my Leaf Green cart on my SP. Yeah. And, man, it's so good. It is just such a good game. It's the Pokemon designs and all that are great, but it's just beyond that. I just think it's very well. Everything's just paced out and metered out very well. And it's not hard at all playing the original or that Game Boy Advance remake to understand why those games became the phenomenon they were.
Yeah.
But here's the thing with my memories. This is going to be the inverse of our Star Wars podcast. Because last year we did our Star Wars retrospective, and the whole thing is, I was the guy who, I've watched the 6 movies and I like those, but that's Star Wars for me.
Yeah.
I played Pokemon Red and Blue, I love those, that's kind of Pokemon for you.
Yeah.
For me, Pokemon is this huge part of my life, and I don't really even think about it until I sit down and really reflect on it. And I realized that. Because I would never, like, if I were to make a list of my favorite franchises, Pokemon would probably never crack my top 5. But in a sense, it should, because of how much I've put into it in my life. Pokemon totally helped get me into games. But here's the thing. I'm getting ahead of myself. You talk about you can remember getting into Pokemon and that sense of discovery. I don't have those memories. Pokemon is just such an integral thing. It's like when you talk about Star Wars and you don't remember seeing them for the first time or any of that.
Yeah.
I don't have that. Pokemon. Like, I do remember, I think the first time I picked up a Pokemon game, but I could be wrong on that. Like, I think I started with the show because it was big at school and everyone was talking about it, so I started watching the anime.
Had that theme song.
Great theme song. Started watching the anime, really loved it. It was on 4 p.m., which was right when I got home from school, so it was really a ritual for me for many years, throughout elementary school, honestly. It was just part of my life. And so my first game console ever was a Game Boy Color. My old blue Game Boy Color. Bought it with a gift card I got from something I did at school in a Target. So that was fun. And it was not one of the first Game Boy games I played, but eventually I got from Blockbuster Pokemon Yellow. This was back when you would rent games from Blockbuster.
Right.
Yeah, that was a thing. Rent fucking cartridge games from Blockbuster, and they would have hard saves.
Yeah, if you have
them.
the same, like I played I did that a couple of times with Ocarina of Time and always had fun being like, here's this random dude who's like halfway through the Fire Temple. I'm going to beat the Fire Temple for you, man I've never met.
Yeah. So, played Pokemon Yellow that way, and then I later got Red, like, to own, and that's the one I played. But I don't know if I even honestly beat Red at the time, because Gold and Silver came out close enough that was kind of my first big one I played.
Sure.
And then I played Ruby and Sapphire to death when those came out on my Advance and then later SP. So, a lot of stuff with the games, but through all that, the show was really, I think, my big thing. I just loved the Pokemon universe. I loved the different Pokemon. I loved just kind of following the stories, such as they were. I loved just kind of the general stuff around it. You know, I played the Pokemon Stadium games. Pokemon Snap, which is everyone's favorite.
Pokemon Snap's so good.
Is somehow the one I missed out on.
It's so good.
I will play it sometime.
Like that's another one where that game has a great sense of discovery for a game that is literally 100%, like, again, literally on rails. That game there's so much stuff to discover in that game, and trying to get the pictures of the different Pokemon and how you can interact with it. That game's great.
I need to play. I could get it on Virtual Console, and I should.
You should.
So, anyway,
I love me some Pokemon Snap.
But, I played Hey You Pikachu. I had that with the microphone. Do you remember Hey You Pikachu?
I mean, I remember seeing commercials for it. Like, I don't know what sort of insane child would ever want Hey You Pikachu when Pokemon Snap is right there. Like, you clearly had been to Blockbuster, so presumably you knew that some Blockbusters had machines that you could go with your Pokemon Snap cart where you had your picture saved, and they would make little tiny printouts of, like, sticker pictures of your Pokemon pictures, and you could put them on stuff.
I don't remember any of that, because this is the other thing, is like, there was no internet, there was no hype the way you get hype now. I wasn't hearing from people saying Pokemon Snap was great, so I guess I just went for Hey You Pikachu because there were the ads.
You should have just felt it in the air. It's like, oh, Pokemon Snap is real. It's here. It's now. My
memory of Hey You Pikachu is that it had an interesting atmosphere, because you were kind of in this, field with your Pikachu, and it just had a cool kind of atmospheric thing to it. But the whole way that, if you don't know what that game is, it came with a microphone that you plugged into your N64, and I remember the ads, the big thing was Pikachu could recognize 100 separate words or phrases. And we now live in, like, the era of Siri, where you can just talk to it. No, Pikachu could understand 100 things, and you had to figure out what he could understand, and you controlled the game by telling Pikachu to go do things. I remember kind of enjoying it and thinking it was cool, but I'm also pretty confident I made no progress at any point. But I'm also wondering if there was any progress.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, I'm not sure. My impression of Hey You Pikachu was it was like there was someone who had been working for years at Nintendo on some sort of voice recognition peripheral for the N64, and like they barely squeaked out a prototype that like kind of worked. And like, we have sunk so much money into constructing this peripheral. What are we going to do? We had never thought about what to do with it. Pokemon's really popular. Hey, guess what rhymes with Pikachu? Hey, you, Pikachu. That's enough to make a game on, right? And then there was someone in the background playing Pokemon Snap. It's like, we can't defile the great Pokemon name with this Hey You Pikachu bullshit. They're like, go back to playing Pokemon Snap. And it's like, fine, I will. I will enjoy some Pokemon Snap while you go talk to your fake little stupid video game mouse. Losers.
And then on the GameCube, I did play and own Pokemon Channel. Do you remember that game?
No, I so don't remember that game. I'm struggling to even remember anything about it.
Pokemon Channel is the game where it's hard to even call it a game. It's the TV viewing game where it has multiple stations and you just watch different Pokemon related content. Like it had a new short on there. Like I think it was a sequel to the Pikachu and Pichu short from the third movie. You could watch that on there.
Right, that's a real whiz banger.
There was like a shopping channel and you could buy stuff. Pikachu was your host. You were like in this little house with him. But I don't even know if you controlled things. You just watched the TV and you got rewards, but it was like a progression system for watching different TV things.
Was there ever a show where Great Detective Pikachu was solving like bloody murder?
No, but that's why I'm excited for Great Detective Pikachu, is because it sounds like that weird-ass Pokemon spin-off that you would get in those early days.
Yeah.
Like Pokemon Channel or Hey You Pikachu or Pokemon Snap.
But one that sounds like an actual video game, like
Yes.
Pokemon Snap.
Yes.
And not some bullshit tech demo like Hey You Pikachu.
Yeah. But, I mean, so I loved all of that stuff. I was really into the games. But, like, Sean, I reflected on this with you. I don't know if this was off the air or not at some point where I realized I have, at this point, not seen the majority of the Pokemon anime, but at a certain point, I had seen every single episode. I saw all of the stuff in Kanto, saw all of the stuff in the Orange Islands, saw all of the Johto journeys. There were 3 different series with Johto on it, and I don't know if I saw all of them, but I know I watched enough to get into the Ruby Sapphire stuff, and I watched through the whole first run of that, and then where I dropped off was somewhere in the second of the 3 Ruby Sapphire series. I never made it to the Diamond Pearl anime, which is where they had the new dub and all that stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, but that means I saw every Pokemon movie they put in theaters here. I saw every fucking one. I saw Pokemon the first movie. I saw Pokemon the movie 2000. I saw Pokemon 3 the movie. Then you know what they did with the last one flopped. So Pokemon 4 they released limited. I got my mom to drive me over to the Westminster Promenade Theater. Saw Pokemon Forever. Saw Pokemon Heroes the 5th one same way. 6th one the Jirachi Wishmaker. It only came direct to video, but I bought that fucking video and I still own it.
Jonathan, I have this thing I think you should watch. It's called Digimon.
Okay.
If you were able to suffer through that much of the Pokemon show, Digimon would make you very happy because it's a lot better.
And look, I started watching Pokemon at a very young age.
So did I.
I recognize it's not the greatest thing in the world.
It's not.
Some of it is on Netflix now, and I've recently gone back and watched a couple episodes just to try to refresh my memory for this podcast. It's not a very good show, but man, is it soaking in nostalgia for me. Like, I can totally recognize what's crappy about it. Every episode is the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
And
hey, Team Rocket's blasting off again, Jonathan.
Exactly, they are.
How many times do you think you've heard that in your entire life? Hundreds?
Hundreds. I do think there's a certain charm to it. I think the animation is actually pretty good on that show for what it is.
Sure, for the time, yeah.
Yeah. And, like, nicer than the current, like, digital animation I think you would get with it. I think it looks pretty nice. And, you know, I think there's a certain heart to it that's nice, but there's also, if you get a bad episode of that, there's just this crass, corroded heart of commercialism to it.
Yeah.
Some of it.
Funny how that works.
Decent dub for the time, honestly. I think if you put it up against some other really bad dubs that were out at the time, that one was okay. But, yeah, it... I don't know. I'm not ashamed of any of this because I was a kid. It's a kid's show and whatever. But it's really weird when I reflect on it. That was a huge part of my childhood.
I mean, yes, it was a kid's show, Jonathan, but we're the same age. Like, you're actually like a little bit older than I am, and I fell off of the Pokemon cartoon around the Orange Island stuff is where...
The Orange Island stuff was good.
Like, I remember thinking this like, oh, this is kind of interesting because I think there was that one dude in the Orange Islands who was like basically like Brock, but not... Like, he wasn't
Tracy.
Brock, but yeah, Tracy like,
Sketchit.
He's basically the Pokemon Snap dude, but I don't think he's exactly the Pokemon Snap dude. And when I realized he wasn't actually just the Pokemon Snap guy, I was a little bit bummed out and stopped watching. But I rarely remember seeing Pokemon the first movie in theaters because I still have somewhere the like limited edition Mew Pokemon trading card that you got.
That was with Pokemon 2000.
Oh, that was what's it? I don't know because Pokemon the first movie had the whole beginning of that movie was them going like finding.
No, but are you talking about the Egyptian hieroglyph one?
Yeah,
that was with 2000.
Really? Okay. Well,
I know it's weird, but it was with 2000.
Okay, well then I have that definitely. I have that card somewhere because I had some Pokemon cards. I also remember they had. On Lunchables when Pokemon was really big, like little weird square cardboard cutouts on the back of like, hey, this is a Bulbasaur, and you could like cut it out and like catch them all off the back of your Lunchable in like really easily destroyable little cardboard squares. And we did that with my friends for like a week and realized, this is stupid. Why would you, like, because I don't remember where any of my other little Pokemon cardboard squares are. Like, they marketed the shit out of Pokemon when we were kids.
Oh, no, they did. It was, I mean, that was the period.
And you never stopped buying into it, apparently.
No, but that was also the era where anime for kids was huge here.
Yeah.
I mean, anime has become very big again, but in a very different way in the U.S.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, that was an era where you would walk into any mall in the U.S. and you were seeing Pokemon merchandise, Dragon Ball Z merchandise, Yu-Gi-Oh merchandise. I mean...
I was watching it, man. I was watching all that stuff.
All that stuff. It was all great in some ways. But like with Pokemon, like I don't really even remember seeing the first movie in theaters. I know I did, but I don't remember it strongly.
Apparently, I don't remember it either, because I thought I remembered it, but apparently that was Pokemon 2000 that I was remembering.
But look, I remember this because 2000 was like a formative experience of seeing that movie. That was a formative memory of being super excited, hyped for a movie. Because that predates the first two movies that I know were like defining hype for me, which was the first Harry Potter and the first Lord of the Rings, which were both 2001.
Yeah.
And those were like the most excited I'd ever been for a movie. Before then, it was probably Pokemon 2000. Getting hyped for that and getting my Mew card on day one and just seeing that movie. And I wouldn't go back and watch it, but that's one I remember liking. So, yeah, I was super into this shit. I watched so much Pokemon and played so much Pokemon. I mean, I was in a regular rotation as a kid where I would just play... Red and Blue and Gold and Silver and Ruby and Sapphire and then later Fire Red and Leaf Green. Those were just kind of the games I played. I played other games too, but I would always, the Game Boy was my main system growing up, and I would just play those a lot.
I just feel so sad right now just hearing all this.
Why?
Just knowing how it's like what the games are good. I have my issues with the later games because I feel like they didn't evolve enough to keep my interest. But just hearing how long you kept on watching that fucking cartoon, man. Oh my god. Oh my god! Like that takes dedication to watch that show for that long.
I owned fucking tapes. I own all the first 6 movies on VHS. Still have those. I don't know if I have my tapes of like individual episodes, but I had several of those, and that's why I know the Squirtle Squad episode so well. Because I own that on a tape, and that's a great fucking episode. Because Squirtle's got his own squad, and they
had sunglasses. I remember that.
Sunglasses. They're one of the best images in all of human art. Is Squirtle and his squad in the fucking tub with their sunglasses. It's great.
You might be exaggerating it slightly.
Da Vinci, eat your heart out.
Sure.
I'm just kidding. But it's cool.
No, it's not.
The Squirtle Squad is cool. Come on.
No.
He's got his own squad. It's cool.
No.
If
they called it the Squirtle Sunglasses Squad, like Digimon there is literally a Digimon anime called Digimon Squad.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, never mind.
It might be called Digimon Data Squad, or it's just Digimon Squad. It was past my time, but yes.
Digimon Data Squad is better because it's alliterative.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, I watched a lot of Pokemon, and, part of it was just, like, I remember waking up early and being excited the morning they premiered the Johto stuff, because it was like their new season. Ash was finally going to go to Johto. The first episode is called Don't Touch That Dial, because they meet a Totodile. I remember that shit. And it's a really boring, kind of fillerish episode.
And then it just starts the slow decline of like, man, Totodile's is okay. Totodile's no Squirtle. I wouldn't watch an episode of an anime where there are a bunch of Totodiles that squatted up with sunglasses. Totodile Squad is not... Is like Squirtle Squad's not quite cool, but it's a lot closer than Totodile Squad is, my friend.
I think the Totodile Squad equivalent would be like a bunch of Totodiles hiding in like a meth addict's toilet in Florida.
Okay, sure. I mean, you watched way more of it than I did. Past that point, you would know the tone of the show at that point.
But yeah, and I remember just being constantly disappointed Ash could never win a fucking championship. I bet he still never has.
I mean, if he did, they would have to stop the show, right? Like... That's the whole thing, is that somehow he is able to... He has, like, a Pikachu that has, like, somehow broken the bounds of the leveling system for Pokemon. He has a level 2 billion Pikachu, and somehow he still can't win. That Pikachu could beat, like, the Pokemon that created the universe, and still he can't win a goddamn championship.
I remember being really sad when he sent his Charizard away, and Charizard left the show.
I remember being way into that Charizard, because that Charizard didn't take shit from Ash.
No, that Charizard
is like, fuck you, man. I love that they worked that mechanic from the game into the show, where you need to have enough badges for your high-level Pokemon to respect you. I love that it's like, Charizard's like, get out of here, Ash. And me thinking just like, Ash is a terrible Pokemon trainer. That never happened to me. I played through Pokemon Red probably at least 3 times to completion in my childhood. I never once over-leveled a Pokemon past the badges that I had. What kind of amateur-ass Pokemon trainer do you have to be to do that? It's crazy.
I think it's more for trading.
He's terrible.
No, Ash is not a particularly good trainer. But man,
who doesn't evolve their Pikachu into a Raichu? Just because it's like Pikachu's cuter. Raichu's kick-ass.
I actually just watched that episode yesterday where he
fights General Surge or whatever, Sergeant Surge or whatever.
Lieutenant Surge.
Lieutenant.
And he wants Lieutenant Surge, is an asshole, and he wants to. Ash is thinking about evolving Pikachu, and Pikachu doesn't want to do it, and so they finally find a way to beat him. I forget what the MacGuffin is there.
It's because his speed stat is actually higher if you level up Pikachu. The speed stat increases quicker than if he had evolved to Raichu, and eventually Pikachu learns agility that if he had evolved into Raichu earlier, he would never have learned agility.
Nice. Well, anyway,
apparently, I paid way more attention to that show than he did.
Yes. Well, anyway, I also might not have watched the whole episode yesterday. But anyway,
that's like one of the 3 Pokemon episodes I can kind of remember.
It's an okay episode.
It's got a memorable plot device.
It does. I've watched 2 others recently, and I just want to describe them here for you because I think I found 2 shitty ones. To be fair, there are better Pokemon episodes.
Sure.
But one is a really early episode called The School of Hard Knocks, which is this great example of where Pokemon could take itself really weirdly seriously. And because sometimes I think the Pokemon show could be tongue-in-cheek and fun. Like, they would do some stuff with Team Rocket every once in a while where, they knew what Team Rocket was.
Sure,
and just have fun with it. Or they would have the really weird out there ones, like the one where you have Meowth's origin story, and that's actually kind of a legitimately good episode where Meowth falls in love with a female Meowth and learns to speak human just so he can impress her, and then loses her, and then joins the Mafia because he's so depressed. That's actually kind of a good episode.
Do you think at this point in the Pokemon anime that, Meowth just runs Team Rocket, the whole organization? He's killed Giovanni in, a big, the end of Godfather-style sequence where it's Jesse and James now are, his... right side henchmen, and he just sends them off on to go.
The last scene where Jesse is getting to his knees to kiss Meowth's hand, the end of The Godfather.
Or later James is Fredo. It's eventually Meowth has to just put a bullet in the back of his head on a boat.
I love Meowth. I think Meowth's cool.
He's the best character of that whole show.
Oh, totally. He's great. His voice, actually, I think the voice actor for that did a really good job.
Yeah, he did.
But anyway, so the School of Hard Knocks is one where they find Ash and Misty. I always love this too. Ash, Misty, and Brock, they just wander through the wilderness for days. It's where do you live? In actual Japan, you couldn't do that.
Yeah. It's how are you, are you just eating, Caterpies on, in between episodes and you don't even see it? You're just, roasting them alive?
I mean, they did a whole episode about that whole thing in the Pokedex entry where Farfetch'd is, poached for food.
Yes, yeah, and it's almost gone extinct, yeah.
Anyway.
That's why they're so hard to get.
So in the School of Hard Knocks, they're wandering around and they find this Pokemon Academy, which is this little school where there's elite Pokemon trainers go and they train for 10 years and they learn all their Pokemon shit. And they find this kid there who's he's there because his family's rich and he's supposed to go to Pokemon Academy or whatever it's called. And he's being hazed by the upperclassmen and all this shit. And he's no, it's okay. They need to do this to me because I need to get better. And he's this abused kid who likes his abusers. And there's this chick there who's you never meet the actual teachers or the head of the school, but you meet this upperclassman who's this chick who's Brock has the hots for because it's a woman and he always has the hots for women.
Yeah.
But it's kind of creepy because she's school age and he isn't. And Brock.
I've never been quite clear on how old Brock is because it's
too old for virtually any woman he's hitting on.
And it seems he should be an adult.
Yes.
It's he looks like he's older. And it's from the game, the Brock in the game is definitely an adult.
Yeah.
But he's spending all of his time hanging out with 2 13-years-olds, walking around the countryside hitting on a bunch of clones all the time.
Well, that's the other weird thing is Misty is probably 15, something like that.
Maybe.
She's... Ash is clearly prepubescent. He's 10.
Yes, Misty and he's always been prepubescent. Yes. He's never he's never hit puberty, the poor guy.
And Misty is postpubescent, but there was always this weird, sexual tension between them, which, when you're an adult, you look just that makes no sense. Ash would not be into her. He's fucking 10.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He's way more into his Pikachu.
Indeed.
It's his true love.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's this whole thing with the school, and Ash challenges the chick to a battle to show that you don't need to go to a prep school to be a good Pokemon trainer, and of course he fucking loses. And then Team Rocket comes in.
Wait, so is the lesson of the show that it's like class? It really does determine your skill and how well you do in life.
I don't know what their point with Ash is ever, because he's like, when I watched that Lieutenant Surge episode, they do this joke, and it reminded me, oh yeah, where Brock and Misty are giving Ash shit because he's never actually won a badge, because the first two gym leaders are Brock and Misty, and in the show they just give him the badge because he's pathetic.
Right, yeah.
Do you remember how he beats Brock?
No.
He fucking, gets a bucket of water and pours it on Onyx, and then has Pikachu electrocute him. It's horrible.
And that doesn't even make sense. That's not... Onyx is literally made of rock. I don't give a shit if you put conductive material around Onyx's body. You're not going to conduct any electricity through solid fucking rock with Pikachu.
And then with Misty, I don't remember the episode all that well, but it's something where, he loses, but then he helps Misty with something, and then Misty takes pity, and they go together, and he gets the badge. So it's like, Ash literally can't even get through the first fucking two gyms.
I mean, to be fair to Ash, when your only Pokemon is Pikachu, and the first gym you go to is the rock-type gym, there's no way he's going to win.
You have to catch a Nidoran.
Yeah, you have to catch a Nidoran and fucking grind for 2 hours, because that's the one bad part about Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah. Anyway, so what was the other episode I watched? That one was weird because it was so serious. This was the one that was so bad, it felt like it's missing an entire act. It's called Pikachu's Goodbye. And it's where...
I wonder how many episodes Pikachu left Ash.
I know. There's this forest... They go and they meet all these other Pikachus, and Pikachu has fun hanging out with the Pikachus, and it's so hilarious.
This sounds familiar to me.
It's so hilarious how underwritten this is. It's at the halfway point, Ash is watching, he's around the campfire with Misty and Brock, and he's seeing Pikachu over in another circle. All the Pikachus are joining hands dancing, and it looks like a weird pagan ritual. With Pikachus. And anyway, so Ash sees that Pikachu is really happy, and he realizes Pikachu needs to be with its own kind. And so he abandons Pikachu. He's like, no, Pikachu, you stay. And Pikachu's all sad, Pika? He doesn't get it, because obviously Ash is his master. Well, what the fuck is Ash doing? This is abusive. And so Ash leaves, and Misty and Brock don't get it, and Ash is crying. And they do this big, I'm not shitting you, 5-minute montage of all of Ash and Pikachu's good times.
I think I know why they made this episode now.
As if it's the actual finale or something.
Yeah.
This was the end of season 1, and in season 2 he'd get a new Pokemon or something. Pikachu's actually leaving the show, and it's this whole song that I don't know what they did in Japanese, but it's an actual English, some dude with a guitar sing a song about how I'm never gonna leave you, and
you're my Pikachu.
Yes, and it's hashtag
hey you I choose you.
Exactly. And so, it's all this stuff. It's mostly images of Ash getting shocked by Pikachu, and Ash is crying, and then it's sunrise, and he looks behind him, and Pikachu runs up and is like, Pika! And hugs Ash, and Ash's like, you came back! And then the episode ends, and it's there's no plot or stakes or anything.
He was gone for Ash reminiscing for 5 minutes. It was
that's exactly it.
Of the drama of the episode.
That is an awful episode, but it's fucking hilarious.
It's really funny how, for both of that Pokemon Academy thing and the Gathering of Pikachu's thing, when you, the first 5 sentences of you talking about that episode, I was I think I kind of remember this episode. And then the next 2 sentences is I don't remember anything about that. All I kind of remember is the vague premise of, oh yeah, there was a one where Pikachu was with a bunch of other Pikachus. And oh yeah, there was one where there were a bunch of people at a school that was a rich kid's school.
Yeah.
But apparently, if you're not born into a rich family and sent to a prep school, you're just going to end up a deadbeat. No good son like Ash, who just abandons his home at a young age.
I remember also now what the conceit of the prep school was. It was to graduate. If you graduated the prep school, it was the equivalent of having 8 badges, and you could go to the Pokemon League. So people could either travel around the world and get the badges, or just graduate from the school. None of that makes sense.
No,
but it makes me want the spin-off where you go to Pokemon Academy and you're just in a fucking building for 20 hours.
You're just in there calculating stat advantages for Pokemon. It's if a level 23 Pikachu uses a Thunder Shock on a level 22 Squirtle, what is the amount of damage you gain extra for the super effectiveness of the Thunder Shock attack on a water type Pokemon?
Yeah. And here's the thing. Those people who say Pokemon is a super deep game and really get into it, they would love that game.
Yeah, probably.
Fucking calculate your stat advantages. What are you doing? It's Pokemon.
Yeah, just use your starter Pokemon for every fight except for the one gym that is the opposite type of your starter Pokemon, and have one that's good against that type, and that's it. You're done.
Or not,
that's
because it's over-leveled enough. And
sure, yeah. It depends
matter.
on if, like what one you started with and how early you encounter that gym.
Yeah. All right. Well, Sean,
yes.
Let's move on to some of these lists, because I have more things to say, but they're contained in my rankings.
Great. I am really excited, because as we've demonstrated, you have a much more thorough history with this franchise than I do. So.
Because here's the thing. So what I did, my first ranking is, I took all the games, and like by generation, and I've ranked them worst to best.
Okay.
All right?
And we all know what the best one is.
Because here's the thing. Pokemon is my Assassin's Creed.
Okay, I understand this now.
So Sean, for instance, if you haven't listened to the podcast for long, Sean has played... this is different now, but you used to be able to say you had played every Assassin's Creed despite not wanting to play most of them.
Yeah, like pre-Assassin's Creed Unity was one that broke it. I had played to completion every mainline Assassin's Creed, so not like the DS one, but all like the main console entry Assassin's Creed games. I had played all of them to completion, except for Revelations, which... That's its own whole episode where I talk about that, where it bugs out on me, and I couldn't finish it, but I watched the end on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes.
So...
And Assassin's Creed 1 is one of my most hated games I've ever played, just for the context of how insane it is that I stuck with that franchise.
Now, obviously, I have a lot of love for Pokemon, but I have played every Pokemon game, and not always to completion, but I have played every Pokemon game, even though there came a point where I wasn't really into it. But I kept going just because... Fuck it, I came this far, which I think is kind of your...
Yes, that's exactly how I felt about it. It's I've played like 5 of these, I might as well play 6.
And I should say, there is one I haven't played, and I just remembered about it this morning, but to be fair, this is the off one. Black 2 and White 2, I've never touched those.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that okay? That's still in Generation 5.
I think that's like saying you've played to completion every Final Fantasy game, but you didn't play Final Fantasy X-2. It's like, yeah, fair enough, dude.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So
don't fuck with that dress for your shit. That's not good for you.
So with this ranking, because I've also played all the remakes. So this is not just the games, but they're remakes, they're ranked separately. So it's like, and it's trying to gauge, like, all things being equal... Remakes, non-remakes, how much enjoyment, what do I think are the best, balanced with nostalgia a little bit, but also, where would I recommend these if I were to say you play Pokemon games? So, we're going to start, number 9 is Generation 4, which is Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum.
Okay, I never really played these.
Fuck these games.
Is this, for my personal context, is this the one where the fire starter was the monkey?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, fuck these.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was basically the end of my... major investment in Pokemon as a franchise, like in terms of the whole multimedia thing, because I didn't watch the Diamond Pearl anime. I kind of fell off with these games because I remember being super excited for these games when they were coming out, because I had really loved Ruby and Sapphire, I had really loved Fire Red and Leaf Green, but it had been a couple years. We'd never had one on the DS. These were the first DS ones. DS one. The DS seemed so perfectly suited for Pokemon, and later games would prove it was. I had these pre-ordered at GameStop. I got my special GameStop stylus that had, like, the legendary Pokemon on the tip. I got, it's all cool. I got my Pokemon Diamond, and this is, like, the most boring game I've ever played. Like, Pokemon games do rely on formula, and, for better, for worse, whatever. Diamond and Pearl are the only ones that actively do nothing with it, I would say. Where it is... I can't even remember most about it. All I remember is you had fucking Sophie's choice of terrible starter Pokemon.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick the fucking Fire Pig or no, that's a different
Fire
one.
Monkey.
Fire Monkey or the fucking, like, Grass Pig. That's what it is.
And is that, like, the turtle? Is the turtle the water one?
No, that one's the penguin. The penguin's okay. Piplup's okay. But... And I don't even remember. I honestly don't even remember what starter I picked. I got pretty far into the game, but all I saw, and this is probably exaggerated in memory, but this is what I remember, is I went like 10 hours in that game, and all I fucking saw were Geodudes. And you know what? It was bad enough in Red and Blue when you saw a lot of Geodudes.
Yeah.
Geodude's the fucking worst. I don't want a Geodude. I don't want to fight a Geodude. Fuck off, Geodude. And there were Geodudes everywhere. They were in the grass. They were in the caves. They were on the mountains. Geodudes were everywhere in Diamond and Pearl, and it didn't even make sense because they had new Pokemon to introduce. The new Pokemon weren't that interesting, but you could try to do something other than Geodude, for fuck's sake.
That's really funny that you say that, because the only direct memory I have of this game is being in the back of a car with a friend, like the parents were driving. I think I was going up to his house. His parents would pick me up. Like, I think we were like young enough that maybe this was like after soccer practice or something, and he had his DS, and he had that Pokemon game, and I was like, he was playing it, I was kind of like looking over his shoulder, and he had the Fire Monkey, and I remember thinking like, man, I feel like the starter Pokemon and Pokemon games have just gotten really lame at some point, this like Fire Monkey, and he was in a cave, and all he ever fought were Geodudes, and me thinking, like, this franchise has gotten nowhere! Like, I'm still technically a kid, and I'm just, like, shaking my head over how this franchise hasn't fucking evolved. Yeah, like, and I remember when I was even more of a kid, and, like, all I ever, like spending all my time in fucking caves fighting Geodudes, and it's, like, 6-8 years later or something, and you're still just doing that in these fucking games. What happened?
Because I will go to the mat for the first 3 generations. I think those are really good games. I can completely understand saying you're a little burned out, because they're, fundamentally very similar.
Yes.
I don't think that equates to them being bad. I think they're really good.
Yeah.
I think they've got a lot of good things to them. If you're really into it, they had a lot of fun things to do. I think Gold and Silver and Ruby and Sapphire have really good things about them. But Diamond and Pearl had nothing. And man, as a kid who loved Pokemon, that broke my fucking heart. I mean, this didn't happen when I was that enthusiastic as a kid about something. I just stuck with it. That's one of my first memories of actively just giving up on a game and saying, I'm done. I'll play something else. And I think I had like Final Fantasy III for the DS at that time. Maybe I was getting into that. I had something more substantial to play. I don't know. But Diamond and Pearl, they're the worst. And you can tell because no one talks about them. Like, that's not anyone's touch point for Pokemon.
Doesn't seem like it.
No one likes Diamond and Pearl. Fuck those games. All right, number 8. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which are the remakes of Generation 3 for the 3DS. These are the most recent releases. Of the ones on this list, I have played them the least. I've played a good chunk of them, but I did not finish these. To be fair, I've played Ruby and Sapphire many times.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, I like these games, but I was very disappointed in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire because they're built on the XY engine. And XY did so much cool stuff of having like the experience share and these big towns and these gyms that were super elaborate and had like puzzles in them and stuff. And it just felt like so big. And then you got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and it was this giant wet fart of a remake where they did so little. It's in 3D, but otherwise it's just the same buildings, the same size, the same placements. They even, X and Y did something smart where they just finally combined the Pokemon Mart and the Pokemon Center. They're separate again in Ruby and Sapphire. It was the laziest shit. And it just was like, if I'm going to play this again, I'm going to go play my Game Boy Advance because I frankly like those visuals better, just the pixel art. And it's the same game. It's the same game. They didn't do anything. It's very disappointing. So anyway, and I'm sure there's people who love these who maybe didn't play Ruby and Sapphire and this was their first time with them. That's cool. You should just go play X and Y. They're better.
Sure, yeah.
All right, number 7 is Black and White, which was Generation 5. Black and White has some interesting stuff. Like, the story is weird enough to be kind of memorable in that this is the Pokemon game where the bad guys believe you are abusing your Pokemon by capturing them and making them fight, and they will save the world by capturing their own Pokemon and making them fight. But then I assume by the end you learn that it's right to make Pokemon fight, and the bad guys, who really should be the good guys, are in fact the bad guys.
It's really interesting that the Pokemon game with the most morally ambiguous story are the ones that are just called Black and White.
Yes, exactly. Black and White, I think, really tried to recover from Diamond and Pearl, because they did some cool things where the towns are much bigger. They really opened up the graphical style. Diamond and Pearl are basically just Ruby and Sapphire with a little 3D thrown in, but they are otherwise, they're Ruby and Sapphire on the DS.
And this is Black and White is still DS?
Still DS, okay. But they did a lot more. It is navigatable, like 3D is what it looks like this time. And that's the thing about Black and White. They have aged kind of the worst of anything besides Red and Blue. They're really tough to look at now because it was pushing the DS as far as you could fucking take it. And they came out right around the time the 3DS did. And honestly, what stopped me from finishing them, because I did like these games, I just didn't love them, was that the 3DS came out, I traded in my DS, got a 3DS, and the original 3DS did not render DS graphics particularly well, and put under that microscope, those did not look good. Yeah. And it kind of killed my enthusiasm for it. But anyway, Black and White, so they did that. I think the town design was really cool. It had a good world, map and stuff. I think they really tried to be more creative. And the biggest thing they did was they said, okay, we're doing just new Pokemon. You will only see new Pokemon until you beat the Elite Four. So that's the idea, is that we're not going to have that Geodude situation.
Right, yeah.
And I think that's admirable. The problem is, this and Diamond and Pearl were the low point of the series because they have the worst Pokemon. I think they rebounded with X and Y in a big way. But, I mean, Black and White is where you have the ice cream cone Pokemon.
Right.
Which we all know. If you don't know the ice cream cone Pokemon, just Google ice cream cone Pokemon. You'll find it, and you'll laugh that was an actual Pokemon.
And then just, like, play a little game with yourself and things like, if I had a Pokemon that was just an ice cream cone, and I had that Pokemon evolve, what would I do to make that Pokemon a more powerful version of that Pokemon? I'm not going to say what it is here. Just think of it yourself and look up what the evolution of that Pokemon is. And then see if you were right. It's a little game for yourself.
Anyway, so, yeah, I did not finish Black and White. I did not. It's telling. The two worst ones are the two I didn't finish. Black and White and Diamond and Pearl. I got pretty far in Black and White, though. I think I was near the end. Good things about it. I also think it's one that just would not stand the test of time if you were to go back and play it, because, frankly, what it tried to do, X and Y did much better.
Sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's my thoughts there. They were popular enough to get sequels. I don't know what those are. That's always been I've kind of always wanted to try them. It's like, do you just have the same 3 starters? Like, what is it? Like, do you have to go through all 8 badges again? Like, what do you do? Because I would think a sequel would be like you could just import your team and like there's 8 new gyms. But no, I don't know what it is.
I wish they didn't call it Pokemon Black 2 and Pokemon White 2. I wish they just called it Pokemon 2, and that was it. Just like, they should make a Pokemon 2 at some point.
Where it's just a full-on redesign.
Yeah, like, throw away the subtitle treatment. It's just Pokemon 2. The sequel we've all been waiting for since the 90s.
All right. Number 6 is Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. These are the Generation 2 remakes for the DS. Basically, and these are the best ones that were on the original DS, as my rankings show.
Sure, yeah.
Because Gold and Silver, great games. They are. I think Gold and Silver is just one of kind of the all-time great video game sequels. You said you never finished it. That's too bad. Gold and Silver gets fucking cool.
Yeah, like, I remember, like, really trying to get, like, and I got pretty close a couple of times. Because I got, like, deep enough to, like, I think I got at least one of the legendary, like, dogs or whatever.
Oh, nice.
But, like, I never quite pushed all the way to the last gym.
Yeah, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver are really good remakes. It was kind of nice to have those again. They did the whole thing where, like the original Gold and Silver, you can go to Kanto at the end, so you have all 8 original gyms, so you can visit Kanto. But it's kind of cool to be able to do that on the DS with the advanced graphics. So that was kind of nice. I played the shit out of this one. They had some cool features where you could pick any Pokemon to follow along in your footsteps, like Pikachu did in Pokemon Yellow. You could do that with anyone in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Hey, Jonathan, if you want a game where your little monster buddies fall around with you in the open world...
Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth?
Yeah. Do you want to know... But it's not just one. It's not just 2. You can have 3 Digimon fall around you while you walk around.
This is fucking cool.
Yeah. That's 3 times more than Pokemon.
Nice. So... I think these were good in my memory. I think this is kind of the question for me where I'm going to rank the remakes is, if I were to go back and play Gold and Silver, would I pick up my Game Boy Color and play it that way, or would I pick up the DS versions? I would pick up the Game Boy Color versions because I think, frankly, they've aged better. I think the graphics on those are gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love those colors. The DS one looks good for its time, but just the era it was made in, it's aged poorer, even though it's a newer game. So, but it was a really good remake, and it was fun for the time, and it introduced, and it was kind of, that was a sad point, though, because that's just a legitimately, on every level, better game than Diamond and Pearl, and it feels more advanced, because Heart Gold and Soul Silver had stuff like the day-night cycle and all these things that the games just abandoned, and so you had the remake, which felt more advanced than the contemporaneous game.
Yeah, and I have weird memories of this one, because this came out when we were in high school, and I specifically remember a bunch of my friends getting way into Pokemon again all of a sudden because they all got this game.
Oh, and because of
the fucking pedometer?
The pedometer! That was I forgot. That was the selling point. That came in a big box with a Pokemon pedometer, and it was actually kind of cool because it would link with your game, and if you got more steps, you could like take your Pokemon that followed you in the game, and it would be on your pedometer, and then it would play into the game. That was actually kind of a neat thing. People were super into it.
Yeah, all those people were stupid, so...
It was also a really shitty pedometer. You could just shake it and get your steps, and that's how most people played with it.
I mean, isn't that like every pedometer at some point?
I mean, more advanced ones, you can't do that with it, but yeah. I mean, it was really like most people just, I need 1,000 steps for this game.
When I say I remember this game because of that, I mean, I remember being in like European history class, and my friend Kurt sitting right next to me, like with his hand under his desk, shaking his fucking pedometer, and out the corner of my eye... When you have your hand under your desk near your crotch and you're shaking it furiously, it doesn't quite look like you're shaking a pedometer. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. And it's a little bit distracting when I tried to learn about the whole, Hitler fucking invading Poland. It looks like my fridge jacking off right next to me. That's what I remember about this fucking game.
Here's the thing. So we're at number 6. This is the cutoff point. 6 and above, I think these are actually legitimately really good games. 7, 8, and 9 are the ones I would kind of throw in the garbage bin. I think starting with 6, with that, the pedometer integration stuff, this is a good game. I really liked it at the time. It's below the other ones for me. But these top 6, when I was making this list, as much fun as I've made of Pokemon sometimes for some of the later games, I really did realize, looking through my whole history, that was contained to the DS era.
Yeah.
And those ones were the ones that were really weak. I think Pokemon had a strong start. I think it's rebounded lately. And there are more good ones than bad ones, is what I'll say. So making this list was kind of fun for me as I walked down memory lane. Because my number 5, had to think long and hard about this, but my number 5 is Red, Blue, and Yellow. Now, you'll see what I'm doing with this.
You're just wrong.
Remember, I have the remakes. They're higher.
I mean, you're still wrong. That doesn't make you not wrong.
It's because the remakes exist. They are better to me than the originals, and the originals have not aged all that well, and they were never my favorites to begin with. Because I did not start with the games and then kind of build from there, Red, Blue, and Yellow, and again, I kind of got into Gold and Silver, kind of overtook Red and Blue and Yellow for me. I don't have the same nostalgic link to them. I think they have a lot of good stuff, but some of the stuff they do well I found more interesting than the other ones. Look, they're great games. They are fantastic. I have their remakes higher, and I do hold these in very high regard, and you'll see, we'll talk about them more in a little bit, but this is kind of where they fell for me, just in my empirical kind of looking at everything Pokemon, where I would put them on my personal enjoyment list. So that's that for me.
Just for the record, you're wrong. They should be the best ones, because they're the only ones that really matter.
Okay, well, I think you'll be okay with my final rankings, but let's go on. 4 is Ruby and Sapphire, and I guess Emerald, although I never played it, which is Gen 3.
Emerald is the only one from Gen 3 that I actually did play.
Okay. Yeah. I played Ruby. My brother played Sapphire and Emerald. But yeah, I played Ruby. I played the shit out of this. I think it's very possible that I have never beaten a game more than I've beaten Pokemon Ruby. It's either that or probably Mario 64. But Pokemon Ruby, man, I played the shit out of this as a kid. I loved it. I played it on my Game Boy Advance. I played it on my Game Boy Advance SP. I briefly played it on my Game Boy Micro when I had that. That was the thing. And I played as a boy. I played as a girl. I played all 3 starter Pokemon. I think Ruby and Sapphire have their weaknesses. I can look back and I'm trying to, again, balance out nostalgia. Yeah. But they also have a lot of cool stuff. I like Hoenn as a region. I like the kind of tone of these games. I think the art style of kind of going on to the Game Boy Advance and having... I think Game Boy Advance games just look gorgeous. I've been in that mode because I've played a bunch of the virtual console releases of GBA games on Wii U, and they hold up so well. I would love to see Ruby and Sapphire that way. I think they're such gorgeous games. And, these were fun. They were like what you kind of described Red, Blue, and Yellow being to you, of being this adventure you go on. And I kind of felt that with these. Even stupid stuff like the Pokemon contests and the special caves you can make for yourself, the hidden bases, were so weird, but just these fun little quirks the game had. And I've always liked that about Pokemon, when they just aren't afraid to get quirky in some ways. So I like these games.
Yeah, for me, I'm just going to... Since this is, again, these were the last ones I actually really played. I've tried so hard to like these games. I'm going to offer my counterpoint. I think it is personally offensive that you would put the original games below these.
To my mind, I'm not, but okay.
Because for me, this is, the main reason why these games killed me of, my trying to really play Pokemon. Because, I'd never beat Gold and Silver, but I really enjoyed Gold and Silver. I just never had, the endurance to go all the way to the end, because it was still felt too samey to me. But it was but then when you go to the Game Boy Advance, it's a new console, it's this should be, this is the real next step in Pokemon. Pokemon Gold and Silver are really good games, but they are, they're so similar to the original in so many ways, because it's basically the same console. So, Game Boy Advance, I was, expecting these are going to be better. And and then I got Emerald right before we went on a big road trip. I remember being so disappointed, playing through Emerald, and disappointed from step fucking 1. All 3 of the starters are trash. Torchic, Mudkip, and Trico. Terrible starters. The starters in your Pokemon game are terrible when I am forced to go with the grass type, because the grass type is the only one I think is, acceptable. It's the grass types are always the worst in terms of actually, in battle and shit. Grass types are terrible. They have the worst moves. Nobody ever wants to use a grass type starter, but the Gecko guy is way better than the Fire Chicken and the indescribable blue aquatic creature. Like, they're awful. Those starters are so terrible. And then the whole game, it was just like a series of fighting zigzagoons, and I can't even remember the Pidgey equivalent. But it was just like, and it was just like running into. Yeah, it was just running into Pokemon after Pokemon that's just like, oh, this is this game's version of this Pokemon from the first game. Like, this is just this game. Like, this is just the Rattata. This is the Pidgey. This is the Spearow. This is the Geodude. This is the that. This is the that. This is the that. And just being like, how have these games not changed? How have these games not gone past this formula? Because honestly, I would rather, just for nostalgia's sake, I would rather Pokemon battle a legion of Rattatas than I would a legion of Zigzagoons, which if you're starting out one of these games, you're going to have to fucking fight a lot of Zigzagoons. That is my... Like, you talk about the Geodudes in the first DS ones, my predominant memories of these are like, just like hordes of fucking little raccoon motherfuckers going after you day and night. No, you gotta fight them off.
I get it. And I liked the Team Magma, Team Aqua stuff in this game.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
The Magma ones wanted to melt the Earth, and the Aqua ones wanted to flood the Earth, and it was kind of...
Tell me it's just they had 2 Team Rockets this time.
Basically.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine. I will have more to say on this decision later on, but
all right.
I was thoughtful in these rankings.
Yeah,
anyway.
You were wrong.
Okay, maybe you'll... Anyway, number 3 is Pokemon X and Y.
Okay.
Generation 6. For the 3DS, as I said before, I just think these are legitimately very, very good games. I booted up I have Y recently because they were giving out some Pokemon for this 20th anniversary. I got my Mew, and I put Mew in there. That was kind of cool. And I was looking through, when I got my Mew, he went into my PC. So I went to my PC so I could get Mew into my party.
Yeah, not your PC, Bill's PC.
Bill's PC, yes. And I forget whose PC it is and by the time of X and Y.
It should just be Bill. It's always been Bill.
I always love when it's someone's PC. For some reason, just not meeting them, it would be like if... your PC Windows was like something PC, and then you have Bill Gates, and it's Windows now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but I went to my PC, and I realized with X and Y, I have like 20 to 25 Pokemon who are leveled to the point where I could use them.
Cool.
And that's the big innovation of X and Y. The way they did the experience share, having that on, I also think... like those games are aggressive in letting you see new Pokemon all the time. It completely eliminates that we're going to see the Rattata equivalent a billion times. It's this route or this little patch of grass, that's where you're going to see that Pokemon. You get to the next one, you'll see new stuff. It's really aggressive in that sense. So you're constantly catching new Pokemon. You can train them all, level them at once, which is great. So I have the equivalent of 3 parties I could use. And I realized I have all these Pokemon I love in X and Y that weren't even in my party at the time I finished the game. Because I did not do a lot of the end game with that. But when I went back and added my Mew, I was like, oh man, I have a ton of shit here. And I put 35 hours into X and Y, and that's just the first 8 badges and the Elite Four. I haven't even done most of the end game stuff. So those are just meaty games. They're really good games. I love the style. One of the things that it puts Ruby and Sapphire up high for me is I just love the visuals, I love the style, the music, all that stuff in those. X and Y is another one. I think they nailed the visuals on this one. It's the first 3D or pseudo 3D Pokemon that really feels like it works, and it's a good visual evolution, really good music. It just works on every level. It's a very good game, and I really thought I was out of Pokemon completely, and it dragged me back in, and I was happy that time. I was like, this is really good.
Cool.
So, yeah. Those are great, and I hope Moon and Sun are even better. Number 2 is Pokemon Gold and Silver and Crystal. This is Generation 2. I'll say this. Pokemon Gold and Silver are cool because they have the darkest story in any Pokemon game. There's some crazy shit going on in this at certain points. Your rival is just a fucking criminal who is awful, and he never really learns his lesson. And I will always remember when you beat your rival at the end and he goes off, it's not like this, and this is just my memory, so I could be wrong. It's not this happy moment where he's redeemed and realizes, I have to love my Pokemon now. It's, why, he never gets it. Why do your Pokemon follow you, all this stuff, and he just kind of walks away, and it's kind of quietly haunting. That's just kind of a fucked up side of it.
And then, he closes the door behind him, and then you hear faintly on the wind, smell ya later.
Team Rocket is back in this one, and they are back with a vengeance because they got fucking beat by a 10-year-old last time.
Yeah, so which if I was the mob, I would be pretty pissed off too.
Yes. And so it's been it's a very direct sequel to Red and Blue because you've got, the Team Rocket is back in this one. You're in Johto, so it's a new region, but they've come to Johto to try to like restart, and they're being more aggressive this time. You have that.
I mean, it's a very direct sequel, even in the sense that Red is in the game. You can go Pokemon fight the Pokemon fighter of Pokemon fighters.
I'm getting there. You're getting ahead of me. So, like, you have weird stuff like the Unknown Cave and these weird puzzles. It's like one of the only Pokemon games that uses some major puzzles in there in a bigger way than just like Lieutenant Surge's trash cans in Red and Blue, stuff like that. So you have a lot of just weird, almost occult stuff, which I love. Johto is like this weird, it's almost like Oz or something in weird ways. You beat all of that, and then you get to go back to Kanto in fucking color, do all 8 gyms, get to the end, and you fight Red on top of a fucking mountain. These are cool games.
And you lose because no one beats Red.
Yes. They are cool. I think the graphics are fucking gorgeous. The Game Boy Color, just that simple color palette, those simple graphics, something about them is just to die for. They've got that atmosphere of the originals, very similar, so I love them for that, but with just a little more oomph. I think these are great, great games.
Yeah, I have nothing against Gold and Silver. I completely agree with you. They're great games. It was for me, too hot on the heels for Pokemon Red and
I get
Blue.
It.
I had done my Pokemon time.
Yeah. So then my number one, I thought a lot about this. I was either going to put Red, Blue, and Yellow or Fire Red and Leaf Green. When I decided I was going to separate the remakes, my number one could only be Fire Red and Leaf Green. So Gen 1 is still my number one. But I have the remakes
it's not the true Gen 1.
Because I'm trying to think about, for me, Pokemon was more than Gen 1. It was a lot more. Gen 1 was frankly a pretty small part of my Pokemon life. But,
Madness.
But Fire Red and Leaf Green, and I replayed Leaf Green last year, so this is very fresh for me. It kind of combines all of my Pokemon experience into one title for me, because you get the great game design and the classic experience of the original Pokemon games, which is awesome. But you get that art style I love from Ruby and Sapphire, which is, one I really loved the art style of. You get the kind of updated music, so it sounds better as well as looking better, but it's still on that classic side, so you still have all of that. I just think they're not like the most, exorbitant remakes in the world in terms of they added a bunch of new features. You can run now, there's a couple new things to do, etc., etc. But basically, it's a preserved version of Red, Blue, and Yellow in a way that I think is more accessible, is more timeless, and are just really cool. And I think they added some great little features, like those are the ones that every time you boot them up, they actually do a little recap of what you had done last time, just brief in black and white, like you did this, you did that, you beat this gym leader. And it's kind of nice because if you walk away for a couple weeks, you can come back and be like, oh yeah, every RPG should fucking have that.
Yeah.
Because there's some, if you're playing a 60-hour game, and Pokemon isn't even 60 hours, but if you're playing a super long game, it's tough because it's you can never just leave a Final Fantasy and come back because you won't have any idea what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
Those games actually gave you a little indication, and that never came back, but I really liked it. So it's just, and they had things like, this is also cool, the text comes in different colors instead of just black. I don't know, there's something about the style of that is so cool. I just really love these games. It was neat at the time because this is when we all learned that they were originally red and green in Japan.
Sure, yeah.
This was the first time I played the other color. I'd always played red, gold, ruby. This time I played green. I'm going to mix this shit up. And I loved it. I loved it as a kid. I started playing it again, a couple months ago, on my SP. Really enjoyed doing it that way. And I just, it's my favorite. If I had to be on a desert island, play a Pokemon game, I would pick this one because it feels like the best of several different worlds. So that's why I had it there.
The originals are still the best.
Okay, I don't think that, but...
Well, you were wrong.
Okay. Well,
I will stand firm. Pokemon Red is the best Pokemon game. I don't care.
Okay.
I don't fucking care.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. This is the fun one, Sean.
All right.
Okay, actually, you know what? We're going to skip the big one really quick.
Okay.
We're going to do the less fun one, because this is really quick. I did this last minute. I realized, okay, I've seen 7 fucking Pokemon movies.
That's so sad.
It's been so sad. It's been probably 10, 15 years since I saw a fucking Pokemon movie. Let's see if I can rank these just from memory. I did not revisit any of these. So
okay, well, I've seen 2.
Okay, you've seen 2.
I know which one I liked better than the other one.
Okay, good.
So we'll talk about my list after you listen to your list.
Okay, so I've seen the first 7. That's Pokemon the first movie through Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, and yes, I had to look up the title of that one. I remember it had something to do with something with a D. Anyway.
7! 7 is the number that if I had to guess the number of Pokemon movies that had been made, I would guess about 7. 7 is the number you've seen, and that's like a fraction of the number of Pokemon movies made.
My number 7 is the 6th movie, Pokemon Jirachi Wishmaker. I just remember Jirachi they were making a big deal out of. You got him in your Ruby and Sapphire, and that movie sucked. I don't remember a single fucking thing about it. That was also the Ruby and Sapphire movie where you had fucking May, who was okay, and then you had Max, who was just shitty.
I don't even know who Max is.
Didn't have Brock and Misty. Sucks.
I don't know who Max is. I know who May is.
May's cool.
Like, I can't even picture Jirachi. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, that's... You know it's sad when it's like I can't even picture the Pokemon when you say the name.
Yeah. All right, number 6 is the 7th movie, Pokemon Destiny Deoxys. I don't even own this one on tape. I think it premiered on Cartoon Network, and that's how I saw it.
That sounds like about the level they would have been at number 7.
And I can't tell you a single thing about this plot. I just remember it had some cool visuals where, like, I think it was because of Deoxys. I don't even know. Is Deoxys from Diamond and Pearl? Must be.
Don't ask me.
Had some powers, and like there was this things where like the town was like falling apart, and like just different visuals of like things almost becoming digitized. It almost looked like Digimon stuff. I don't know. It looked cool.
Digimon's probably better.
That's the only thing. Of course, it's better than this movie. Yes, that's the only thing I remember. Now we get into the movies I do remember. Number 5 is Pokemon Forever, the 4th movie. Pokemon Forever is the one that is a blatant ripoff of Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke, which at the time, and still is, the number 3 highest grossing movie in Japan. So that would be like...
Wait, Pokemon Forever, not
Mononoke. Okay. Mononoke is... Pokemon Forever is not.
Okay.
This was the first. This was the first one where WB stopped distributing the movie, so this was just distributed by Miramax. It was in limited release. Again, it's just a ripoff of Princess Mononoke. This one I think is also on Netflix because I booted it up just to look at some different scenes. And I mean, literally, like Mononoke has that big scene with the deer god at the end when it becomes that big spirit.
Yeah.
They do that where like Celebi becomes this big like wooden forest spirit thing. It is so blatant. It would.
At the very least, I know what Celebi looks like.
Yes.
You said Celebi.
Yeah, this is the one with Celebi. It's also got the purple dog thing in it.
I can't help you there.
Yeah. Anyways.
I feel like there are a lot of purple dogs in Pokemon at this point.
Anyway, this movie kind of sucks, but it's also kind of audacious.
It's got a real good title, though.
Yeah. Number 4, Pokemon Heroes, which is the 5th one. That's where they realized they couldn't fit the numbers in there
when
anymore.
They started copying the titles for the subtitles for Sonic the Hedgehog games.
This is the one with Latios and Latias. It's also the one where you have Team Rocket, but you have another Team Rocket team. Instead of Jesse and James, they're Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh.
Or something like that.
I thought it was going to be Jesse and James, and then there was Johnny and Jerry.
No, it's because Jesse James is like, it's not Bonnie and Clyde. It's some other outlaw, and they took the 2 names and made it 2 characters. Other than that, I don't remember anything.
Do you think Jesse and James have completely different names in Japanese?
They all have completely different names.
I mean, I don't know why that just all of a sudden it hit me.
Most of the Pokemon have different names in Japanese.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, so, no, Jesse and James are different. What was I going to say? So, yeah, Pokemon Heroes, don't remember much of the plot. I know they went to a town that looked kind of like Venice, and Latios and Latias were there, and those Pokemon suck if you actually got them in the game, so...
I feel like I'm on the verge of being able to picture those 2 Pokemon. The fact that there's 2 of them...
They're like birds.
And that's like, it's making it a little bit easier.
All right. You had to use the e-reader initially in Ruby and Sapphire to get them. Remember the e-reader?
Kind
that
of.
Big thing you put in your Game Boy Advance?
I remember in the sense that I remember seeing commercials again.
Okay.
I have the similar relationship to the e-reader as I do to Hey You Pikachu.
Okay.
Which tells you a lot maybe about the e-reader.
Okay, number 3. And now we're into the movies that I and probably everyone else remembers. This is Pokemon, the first movie.
Okay,
Number 1. It's obviously the first movie. They called it the first movie.
Yeah, which is a great... Again, a lot of these Pokemon movies have pretty good titles.
Still the highest grossing anime film in the United States. Let that sink in for a minute.
Right.
Akira, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. No. Pokemon, the first movie.
Dragon Ball Resurrection F.
Yeah, that's in the top 10.
There we go.
But, no.
The next one's poised to take out Pokemon, the first movie. Dragon Ball, the 17th movie.
I mean, again, let this sink in that at the time of Pokemon, the first movie, this was a major summer tentpole release of a dubbed anime. Mm-hmm. That is hard to imagine now.
Yeah.
It's really hard to imagine.
I remember really liking the little short movie at the beginning of Pokemon, the first movie.
And that's the thing. is that I don't remember the other 4 movies because either they didn't have the shorts in the US or they just weren't memorable. But the shorts were the best part of those first 3 movies usually.
Yeah.
It was first movie was Pikachu's Vacation. That's a good one. It also had the story of Mewtwo's origin. That's a cool thing. And the movie itself, it's got some cool parts to it. It's got some good animation. The story is gibberish. It's about how fighting is bad, but that's what Pokemon is. And then they all forget the message at the end and they go on fighting. And it should be like a tragedy, but it isn't.
But hey, Mewtwo looks really cool, and he has that like little cyborg doohickey stuff on him at some point, like at the beginning of the movie.
Yep. He's got a cool voice, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I should have ranked Pokemon Mewtwo Returns, the direct-to-video TV special that they released as a movie here.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, we're going to put that at... pretend that was number 4 and everything else was down, and now number 3 is Pokemon Mewtwo Returns, which is the only one I actually have on DVD. that one they had.
Why? Why do you have Pokemon Mewtwo Returns on DVD, but not any? Why is that the one?
I don't know.
The fucking direct-to-TV sequel, the Little Mermaid 2 of Pokemon movies, you have on DVD. What is wrong with you, Jonathan?
I honestly don't know. It probably came out around the time of like Pokemon Heroes, but I have that one on VHS. But for some reason, Mewtwo Returns. Maybe it only came out on DVD. I don't know.
What the fuck, man?
I don't know. That's the one. So it was a TV special in Japan, like an hour-long, special.
Sure, it's like History of Trunks for Dragon Ball Z.
Yes, but like History of Trunks here, they released it as a movie and tried to tell you it was a movie. It's not. Yeah. But this one's actually even better than the first movie. It's where they meet Mewtwo again. This one actually on the DVD had the uncut version of Mewtwo's origin, which was cool because the one in theaters with first movie was cut. So anyway, this one's okay. It's got some cool stuff. So that's my real number 3. Number 2 is Pokemon 3, the movie. This one's actually pretty good. Like as
Never
a movie,
saw
it's okay. It's where it's kind of interesting because Ash is like a guest star in his own movie. Because what happens is that there's this little girl in a like mansion and her parents die or something and she's sad. And Entei comes because something magical happened, and Entei has like the spirit of her father or something, or Entei thinks he has to take care of this little girl, and Entei can talk, and he's voiced by the guy who voiced Yu-Gi-Oh! Yami Yugi.
Oh, like the Dark Yugi.
Yeah, Dark Yugi. And I think that guy's actually a pretty good voice actor, even though he was in some shitty dubs, and he's really good as Entei in this. And so it's about this little girl, and she wants her mother, so Entei goes and kidnaps Ash's mother, and they're all in a town together.
Okay, it's just like
he doesn't go to Pallet Town.
Yeah, I was just picturing it's like he has to really go out of his way to go to like the booties to go fight Ash's mom to kidnap her. That's really specific.
She's on vacation. So anyway, and so Ash has to go save his mom. She has to go undergo some challenges in the castle. Honestly, quality-wise, this is easily number 1. This is actually a pretty decent movie. It's the only one I would say like this is an okay film.
Okay.
And mostly because it's really not even about Ash. It kind of tells its own story, and it's pretty good. It's also got some stuff with unknowns in there. It's got some nice creepy animation. This one was fun. It's also, I like the title, Pokemon 3, the movie. I just like that they couldn't just call it Pokemon 3. Yeah. They had to be weird about it.
Yeah.
But my number 1, partially because I just like the title, is Pokemon the Movie 2000. From that, even though it's a 1999 movie in Japan, they put it out here in that year where every sequel was called something 2000. So we had Pokemon the Movie 2000. This was the Orange Islands one. Also, I actually think a decent movie. It's kind of fun. Ash becomes the chosen one. He's got to fight like the fucking 3 birds, and then Lugia comes in, and the animation is kind of big and cool. And there's a Slowpoke who's got like a hat.
It's
and he talks.
It's Slowking. Yeah, it's the third evolution. Secretly, you just thought it was Slowpoke, and then he went to college and he became Slowbro. Turns out that Slowbro was actually royalty of like some Eastern European country the whole time, and so then he puts a shell on his head. It's like, this is my crown now. I rule. Listen to my word.
Also, some good Miyazaki ripoffs going on in this one with the villain who's in
like a literal moving castle.
Yeah, in a literal flying castle. But here, look, I love the title, and I got a cool Mew card with this movie.
Yes,
so that's enough to make it number 1.
Yes. Do you want to hear my list?
Yeah.
Of the in my opinion, the 2 best Pokemon movies ever made. Is number 2 comes in at Pokemon the first movie. It was okay. Number 1 is Pokemon the Movie 2000 because I like the title. I like how our reasoning. I like that it is both uses 2000 for the title because of the year of its release, and that it is a second movie, so it is Pokemon the Movie 2000. I think that's pretty good. Slowking is pretty cool. There's a song with a flute.
Yeah, that was cool. So you remember... You remember how movies back in the 2000s would have, like, tie-in soundtracks? They would have, like, the inspired by cuts and all that stuff?
Yes.
I owned the Pokemon Movie 2000 soundtrack, and I listened to it a lot on my little portable CD player.
Now, I mean, you own Pokemon Mewtwo Returns on DVD. You can own the soundtrack inspired by the hit summer movie Pokemon the Movie 2000. And that's fine, Jonathan. You fucking played Hey You Pikachu. I'm not surprised anymore.
All right, but Sean, the real list.
The realist list.
I put a unhealthy amount of work into this one today. I have made a PowerPoint so we can walk through it because this is the only way I'm going to remember half this shit. I ranked every starter Pokemon across all 6 series.
When there's only 3 you really need to talk about, but...
Here's the thing. I realized, yes, a lot of these Pokemon are shitty. There are, particularly in the most recent games, there have been some other cool starter Pokemon. I want to talk about some of those.
Okay. So I'm curious because...
You can probably guess what the top 3 are. I'm not going to lie.
Sure, yeah.
But
I would say I could probably guess what the top 6 are because I feel like there are maybe 6 ones that I was pretty into, and then all the ones past that I was not.
Well, you will see. So there are 19 starters in total. So we're
already I have to feel like I have to give you a demerit that it's like on your first slide, Pikachu is in there, and I get that Pokemon Yellow... Pikachu is technically your starter, but I feel like that doesn't really count. That's not
Pikachu. Pikachu is ranked because he is a starter.
I feel like that's Pokemon Yellow is a spin-off.
Okay,
it's not a true Pokemon game.
I was wondering about this because I was wondering if I should, because Pikachu is also the toughest to rank because if you rank him as a starter, he'd probably be pretty low, but Pikachu is cool as a Pokemon. So I wasn't sure what to do. You'll see where he is.
Okay, yeah, sure. We'll talk about it when you get there. Okay. I want to personally object that in my personal rule set, I wouldn't. But since you went to the trouble of making the list, I will allow it.
Okay. I mean, do you understand why I would include him?
Sure, yeah, I think there is an argument at least to be made.
Look, here's the thing. I wasn't even thinking about it. I got a lot of help with this list from Bulbapedia.
I mean, yes, you would need to.
Because I don't know most of the starter Pokemon by name.
Thank God that's the case.
And Bulbapedia, very helpful. I got all my pictures for this PowerPoint, but they also listed Pikachu as a starter. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what? Bulbapedia says it. They're the fucking experts.
I mean, he's also the star of Hey You Pikachu. Indeed. So he's the starter Pokemon in that.
Okay. So, number 19 is Chespin. This is the grass starter from X and Y. And here's the thing. The Pokemon X and Y starters are otherwise really cool, and they're going to be higher on this list. Chespin, however, I got fucked. I picked Chespin for X and Y just because I thought in his first form he's got a little smile, whatever.
He looks a little like Looney Tunes chipmunk man.
But look how lame his evolutions are. So I put the evolutions on here. His first is Quilladin, which just looks fucking stupid. He's like a little ball. It doesn't even understand how Chespin would turn into that. And then Chestnut...
I mean, that's just like the Quilladin is just Chespin that like... ate too many, like, Qdoba burritos or something.
Yes. And then you've got Chestnut. I don't even know how they got from Quilladin to Chestnut. Looks like a total different line of Pokemon, and he is the lamest looking fucking Pokemon. And overall, I mean, these Pokemon suck so much. I got to Chestnut, I put him in the bank, never looked at him again. Pokemon X and Y, I used exclusively other Pokemon. That speaks to why those games are good, but also I wish I would have picked one of the others because they are legitimately cool, but I got fucking Chespin.
Yeah. And now that I feel like I want to just like lay a little bit of groundwork before you get deeper in, do you have any personal feelings about like the elements of the 3 starter Pokemon and like that having like a specific sort of voice in the rankings? Because for me, I think that grass starter Pokemon are always a little bit lamer. They're always the lamest of the 3, in my opinion.
I don't think always, and you're going to see...
Well, okay, I should say always, except for in the case of Emerald, I guess, where I should not contradict myself so quickly in my own podcast. But, like, as I said, that was a special instance of where I was sad I had to pick the grass starter, because the grass starter is supposed to be the lamest.
They can be. I think they've done it well once or twice. We're going to talk about those. I still love Bulbasaur to death. He's
Bulbasaur is cool.
Of the 3.
Yeah, but Bulbasaur is really awesome, but he's like in a whole other league. So it's like among those 3, he's the lamest of those 3. And I think part of that is because the grass element in Pokemon is just a bad element for like using them in fights. they're not that good, and their moves, like all like Leech Seed and stuff like that, it takes them a long time to get a good high damage elemental attack for grass.
Yeah, I think definitely grass is usually the weakest. I think they don't have to be, and it's too bad they've done that. You're going to see a theme on the bottom half of this list. They've usually dropped the ball hardest on the grass types.
Okay.
And it's too bad because, like with Bulbasaur, just because their moves are kind of lame doesn't mean the Pokemon has to be lame.
Yes.
And that's... So, look, number 18, Snivy.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this thing? Snivy is from Pokemon Black and White. He's the grass starter. He starts as just this little shit with a... I don't even know what you would say he is, but he evolves into Servine, who just is like a bigger Snivy, and then he becomes a fucking dragon with no legs or arms called Superior.
I mean, Superior looks like it's Snivy in a sleeping bag.
Pretty much, yes. That's what it looks like. What the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it's vaguely reptilian. Like Servine has some, like, a little bit of, like, a Godzilla fin thing going on, but with, like, leaves instead of, like, scaly protrusions. But yeah, I know, I think he's lame. I think especially that final evolution, which that's the saddest thing, because the starter Pokemon, ideally, all starter Pokemon have their 3 evolutions, which is one of the reason why I think Pikachu does not count, because Pikachu's not one of the canonical elements, and he's also does not have 3 evolutions. But again, it's your list.
Well, we can consider Pikachu in like a pocket universe.
Sure,
if you want. Whatever.
But the evolution stages are always number 1 for like their baby form, really cute. Just adorable little Pokemon with maybe a little bit of attitude in there, you know? And then he evolves, and then it's like the awkward teenage phase that's like...
Yes.
It doesn't look as good as the first one, is not anywhere near as cool as the final evolution, but still has like a bit of attitude and has like something going for him, but is like a little bit awkward. And then their final evolution is just supposed to be overwhelmingly badass. Like, you just should look at that thing and you should shudder for how awesome the final evolution of the Pokemon, of your starter Pokemon is. And it should make you feel somewhat justified in never using any other Pokemon for the rest of the game once they reach that form.
And the thing is, I do think outside of Red and Blue, they have pulled that off a couple times, and we're going to get to those. But when they don't pull it off, you get shit like Snivy, or my next one, Turtwig. What the fuck is this thing? So Turtwig is my number 17. My number 16 is Tepig. So they have done a pig grass and a pig fire, and it's tough to say which one is lamer. I went with Turtwig because its second and third forms are roughly interchangeable, and they're called Grotle and Torterra, which sounds like things your dog says when it's throwing up.
I mean, all 3 of them are pretty bad. Turtwig does not sound good. Grotle, as you said, sounds like some sort of awkward bowel movement. I will say I see what they're going for with Torterra. It's mixing tortoise with like the Latin word terra, which means earth, and it's a plant type Pokemon. It's like, I don't think it's a great name. I understand the logic behind the Torterra, but yeah, they're not good. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. So anyway, my PowerPoint just freaked the fuck out, and I have to relaunch it.
It couldn't handle the Torterra.
No, it couldn't handle the Torterra. All right, so we got Turtwig. All right, then what the fuck is going on? All right, number 6.
Yep. Up.
I don't know. It's all frozen. Okay, PowerPoint. What are you doing?
Maybe don't full screen it.
Okay, we don't.
Maybe just do it like that. There you go.
All right. Well, anyway, Tepig is the next one. Fuck, Tepig looks stupid. I put Tepig on here like higher than Turtwig only because its final form is mildly interesting. It's called Embor, and it's a giant like standing pig with fire.
The Ember Boar. Like I don't think it's a great name, but I understand the name.
And then we've got the best bad name of all of them, which is his second form, which is called Pig Knight. Like Ignite, but Pig Knight.
That's a really terrible name.
Yeah.
But like, unlike a Grotle, which is a really bad name, but is so bad that it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable every time you say it. Pig Knight. It's hard to say Pig Knight without having a smile on your face.
Yes.
It's like, so far I'm agreeing with your rankings here.
Yeah.
Like, Tepig and his following forms are not great.
No. And I mean, he's not awful, but like his name says it all. Tepig sounds like tepid.
Yeah,
it's a tepid fire pig.
And Tepig, I don't understand the logic behind that name. Do you? No, yeah.
Other than that, I can only think of tepid, but that's not what they were going
like
for.
That would be like a really strange, like, this is Lamosaur. Like, some of his other forms are maybe a little better. We couldn't think of anything else for this.
So that one's bad. Now we got number 15. This one's okay. We got Oshawott. This is from Pokemon Black and White, the best of the Black and White starters. We've already exhausted them, by the way, with
That's
Tepig,
really sad.
with Tepig and Snivy.
Oh,
the
man.
Fucking Oshawott. Oshawott evolves into Daywott. I don't know what that's a reference to. Daywott is like this. So Oshawott is like a little puffin kind of thing, and then Oshawott is like a standing.
I think they're going for Otter. Otter, say.
Otter,
he's got a little clam thingy that I think he's going to break on his stomach at some point.
Yeah, and then we got Daywott, and the final one is Samurott, which I kind of love that name.
It's good, yeah.
And it's a fucking Pokemon with like a horn shell hat thing.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. Oshawott's okay.
Yeah, I think, they have the shell motif that continues through, and it's like they do good, like, again, with the movement of the evolutions is on the first, it's just a cute little shell. In the second one, he's turned into an accessory. It looks like he bought it, like, something from, like, Hot Topic or something. It's not really working for him, but he's going through an awkward phase. Yeah. But then by his final form, when he's Samurott, he's realized, hey, this shell has kind of grown up with me, and now I've got this sick-ass horn, so I'm just going to put the shell with the horn on my head, and now I can impale people. I can respect that, Samurott.
Yep. Now, my next one is one I honestly thought would be lower, because I've only seen its first form. But I saw its next two forms, and I thought, you know what? This one's okay. And it's Fire Monkey. Chimchar. Chimchar is not great, but it evolves into Monferno, which has some attitude. It's got a fire tail. It looks okay.
Monferno looks like a character from a Sly Cooper game.
It does. And then it evolves into a Pokemon that I actually think is kind of badass. Infernape. One, I like that name. Two, it's a fucking, like, flaming fire monkey. The big miscalculation here, I honestly think, is his first form. Chimchar looks fucking retarded.
Yeah, like, Chimchar's not got a good look for him. He's got that little poof of hair on the top of his head. Unfortunately, the shape looks like a classic bit of Japanese anime poop.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's in that perfect shape. It's strange that, it's Japanese game, is Japanese design. Don't know why they would have made it look like so much like someone took a dump on his head, and he's just blissfully unaware of it. But, honestly, I'm not sure if I can get entirely behind Infernape the way that you are. I think he's okay. I feel like there's a lot more potential for the final form of a fire monkey. I just feel like he's a little bit too lean and mean. I think there needs to be a bit of bulk to the final form of a starter Pokemon, in my opinion.
Okay. But we're getting better, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement. It's a monkey. You gotta love a monkey.
Yeah. All right, now we got Mudkip. This is from Ruby and Sapphire. Number 13. I like Mudkip. He's this low because I forgot how stupid his evolutions are.
Yeah, I mean, the evolutions are my main problem with Mudkip. I think the core Mudkip is fine. He's a little bit undefined in terms of what sort of animal he's meant to be designed off of, but he is suitably adorable.
Yes, and then you have Marshtomp, who's still suitably adorable, but doesn't really add anything, And
has a terrible name, just like a hard name to say, Marshtomp.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
And then Swampert, and it's lost everything. What is that thing?
I don't know. All of a sudden, he has two little fins on his head, which just looks way worse. His tail, I don't even know what's happened to his tail, and he's just striking a very awkward pose, as if he's in some sort of awkward evolutionary stage between a creature that's supposed to be bipedal and one that walks on all fours. Which is weird because Marshtomp appears to be a bipedal creature. Yes. Mudkip appears to walk on all fours. Swampert, somehow the final form has gone backwards evolutionarily. I would have, for the sheer stupidity of those later forms, I maybe would put Mudkip below Chimchar personally.
It's a tough call.
It is. Neither of them are great.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying though. All right. I'm going to disappoint you a little here, Sean. Number 12 is Trico.
Okay.
I really like Trico. This is another one where he's low as he is because of the evolutions.
The final evolution for Trico, I think, is very weak, and I will agree with you there.
Sceptile. Grovile's okay. Grovile's got a good amount of attitude. Trico's got a good amount of attitude, but Sceptile's just kind of...
Sceptile looks like Grovyle just got old, and the kind of middle age, has a bit of a beer belly, has gone bald, and, has a lot of hair on his back now, and it's just it's not working out for him. But... I think, Trico is really cute, and geckos are cool. We all love geckos. And Grovyle, Grovyle is probably actually, one of the best middle stage evolutions for a starter Pokemon, in my opinion.
He's pretty cool.
So much so that it completely overshadows with the final stage evolution, which is very rare, I feel.
Okay. I can see that argument. I don't necessarily agree, but I like it.
But, this is number 12 out of a significant number, so it's like, I don't necessarily completely disagree with you on the list.
Well, let's look at number 11. Number 11 is the only one this high from Diamond and Pearl, and it's Piplup. And Piplup is the cute little penguin one, but I think it's a good evolutionary arc. Then he becomes... All right, the name is fucking stupid. Piplup becomes Prinplup, which sounds like they just mistyped something.
Yeah, it sounds like someone drunk was typing, like, Piplup. It's like, Prinplup.
But anyway, he becomes a pretty badass penguin. I like that look of him a lot. And I'm a sucker for penguins. I think penguins are awesome, so I like Piplup. And then Prinplup looks cool. And then you have Empoleon, where he's like a big emperor penguin with wings and like a crown on his face. I think it's cool. I like this Pokemon.
Yeah, I think I would kind of dock some points for the Empoleon. I feel like, obviously, Emperor Penguin, like, yes, but I don't get the last half of the name. I feel like they just kind of gave up on trying to find something penguin-esque to call him that was beyond, like, just Emperor. Like, Empoleon sounds like that should be a completely different Pokemon to me, but the design is good.
It's a play on Napoleon, because in the game, he invades Russia in the winter.
Well, then that knocks him down even more, because then he's a stupid Pokemon that has not learned from the strategic errors of his past.
All right, so that's Piplup, Prinplup.
I will have to say, for the record, there's something like I kind of want to get behind Piplup and his later evolutions, but for some reason I feel that a penguin water starter Pokemon feels slightly pandering to me, because everyone loves penguins so much that it's just kind of pathetic that, like, you have to go to that well, like, in only your fourth game of, like, this long-running series that's, like, at number 4, you're like, we gotta do the penguin one. We just have to do the penguin one.
But think about it in context. Their previous one was, I can't even remember the name now, Mudkip, who was nothing.
Yeah.
He'd already run out.
But it's like, again... I feel like that might be, like, my own personal bias. And
I see what you're saying.
But, again, like, I just can't get away from the feeling that it's just, like, pandering to me.
I gotcha. All right, my next one, our first from Gold and Silver, number 10 is Cyndaquil.
Interesting that you would put him as the lowest from those games. I obviously hear your reasons.
I like Cyndaquil. I think Cyndaquil's cool. Biggest one, honestly, is I think the other two are more interesting design-wise, and Quilava and Typhlosion are roughly interchangeable. They look almost the same. When you're actually playing the game from the back, they don't look that different. I think, and I have more experience playing with some of these than I do the others, but, like, I've played through Gold and Silver with Cyndaquil, I've played through it with some of the others, and I just think he's fine, he's cool, but he also, I don't know, his first form is by far my favorite, and then the next two, like, honestly, he's one I would maybe not even evolve. So, but I really like that first form. I even like the name. I think Cyndaquil is a good name, and I actually like Quilava and Typhlosion as names too.
Yeah. I mean, I will agree that, like, Cyndaquil is easily the best of his three forms, but, like, and you're right, like, Typhlosion is a weak follow-up from Quilava, but I think Quilava is a good middle stage evolution for him as well.
Okay.
But I'm curious to hear your arguments for the later ones. So
okay, some of it. A lot of this is just design more than anything, because fuck it, they're Pokemon.
Yeah,
but yeah.
I mean, all the Pokemon, like, all of them for their different types, play basically the same as all the other ones.
Yes. So number 9 is Totodile.
Okay.
I like Totodile. I think he's fine.
Totodile. I mean, he's good.
Okay. Yeah, Totodile's good. So Gold and Silver turns into Croconaw. Turns into Feraligator, and that's not misspelled. It's spelled TR with no O in there. I had to check that.
I didn't know that. I've always thought that Feraligator had the O.
Yeah, and I think we're into the phase 9 through 1 where I generally like all the evolutions. Feraligator's not my favorite, but I like Croconaw, I like Totodile. It's another one, though, and this was a thing Gold and Silver had, where all of them, the first form is by far the best. Like, yes. Totodile's the coolest, Cyndaquil's the coolest, Chikorita, when we get to her, coolest. And then their evolutions are fine, but not the best. But I do think just Totodile on his own is a cool design. I like the alligator theme. He's got some attitude to him. Totodile's fine.
Yeah, I think, like, Croconaw has, like, a bit of a weight problem that's not quite. I just feel like, I don't know. I they could have slimmed his design down a little bit and still gotten the point across. I am way into the name for alligator, except I don't like that they took out that O.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, feral alligator being for alligator, I think is a great name. And once you take out that O, you're trying too hard.
Yeah. All right, now we're getting into some ones that I haven't necessarily played with, but I've learned about recently, and I think they're pretty cool. So this is from X and Y. This is Fennekin.
Okay.
It's like the Fire Fox. Fennekin's cool. So the Fire Fox form is super cute, but also kind of stylish, savvy. She looks like she could be a runway model as a Pokemon.
Yeah.
This is the Fire one. It's kind of a girlish Fire one. We haven't had that before. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Turns into Braixen, or Braixen. I'm not sure how you say it.
I would say Braixen.
Braixen. It's got this stick sticking out of its ass, which is a little weird.
Yeah.
But it's like a standing fox, still pretty stylish. It's got this fur those orange kind of... The orange fur is coming out of its ears, kind of looks like fire, but it's not literal fire, so I think they've found a way to take the normal fire Pokemon motif and find a new way to do it, which I like. And then it becomes Delphox, where now it's holding the stick. The stick is on fire, and it looks like a sorceress. So this is kind of like, I don't know, the strong female of Pokemon.
Sure.
I like it.
Yeah, I like what they're going for. I kind of have to disagree with you that it would be placed this high. I mean, I think Fennekin is a good design, although the more you look at the red fur coming out of its ears, the more it makes me feel uncomfortable. There's I just think that Fennekin maybe has some sort of issue, that like grooming issue that needs to be taken care of, because how does this Pokemon hear anything with this just really thick? I mean, the thickest hair it has on its whole body, other than its tail, is coming straight out of its ears in all three of the forms. And I don't like the stick. I think I get the idea with the stick, but the stick just coming out of this tail, again, echoing more of the grooming problems that this Pokemon has throughout its whole life, that it doesn't even have the wherewithal to take out random bits of foliage that have attached itself to its fur and become entangled in its tail. And then it's like all of a sudden it's a caveman and is lighting a little torch in Delphox. I get this sorceress idea, but the twig that it's holding is so pathetic that it doesn't evoke a powerful magical wand to me. It more it's really dark outside and I need to go find somewhere to go to the bathroom, and we don't have electricity in the woods, so I'm gonna use my fire powers to light this twig on fire so I can see where I'm taking the dump.
Number 7. This one I actually think is pretty good. This is, I think, one of the best starters outside of the originals. It's Froakie from Pokemon X and Y, and I will always kick myself that I never played as Froakie, because Froakie's first form is a little toad. Awesome. He's cute, but he looks a little shy.
Yeah, he's got some personality.
Yeah, then he comes Frogadier, who's just a badass. Look at that dude. He does not give a fuck. Frogadier is just hey, you want to go? No, I don't care. Look at me. I've got a fucking scarf made of clouds or something. It's awesome.
And the half-closed eye is a very strong look. He's got some attitude that is appropriate for the adolescent stage.
Then he becomes Greninja. Look, this Pokemon's pretty much perfect. You get all the way to the end. Now he's all frog, toad, ninja, who looks cool. I know Greninja from Smash Bros, and I think he's an awesome fighter. It's a really good final form Pokemon. I think it speaks that you can have Greninja and Charizard in the same fight, and they feel good together in Smash Bros. This is a cool Pokemon.
I basically completely agree with you here. It's a very strong choice. The one tiny demerit I would give is for Greninja, when you realize that the scarf around its neck is actually its tongue, is a little gross. Did you never notice that?
I just thought it was a scarf.
No, I mean, just look at the texture and think about a frog. It's still a good design, but when you think about it walking around in the world with its tongue wrapped around its own neck and flopping around behind it as if it were a scarf, and just the moist sloppiness slapping against the trees that's just jumping through brush as ninjas are wont to do, makes me feel slightly uncomfortable, which is why I feel it's okay that it's at number 7, because otherwise I think it would deserve to be higher.
Yeah. Now my number 6. Sometimes when you make rankings, you just have to go to the mat for something and put something higher than maybe it deserves, because you want to just give it that extra boost. You want to be an advocate, that sort of thing.
Okay.
My number 6 is Chikorita.
You're wrong, but
Chikorita is cool. I like Chikorita. I like that the leaf on its head it uses for fucking attacks. I always imagine the razor leaves flying out of there as it spins it. I just think it's cool. It's really super cute, but also has just a little bit of it's smiling. Its head is cocked. It's got a little bit of attitude. It becomes Bayleaf, who I think is also really cool. And then Meganium sucks. But Bayleaf and Chikorita, I really like. They're always been my favorite from Gold and Silver. I thought they were cool in the anime. I liked Chikorita. I think it's a cool name. and I just don't think it gets the respect it deserves. So Chikorita, I put it number 6.
I think it's insane to put Chikorita at the highest of all the Gold and Silver. I think Meganium, the final form of Chikorita, is just lame. Like, Meganium looks like it should be standing next to Nurse Joy at the Pokemon Center, like with the Chansey, you know? That's not... Meganium is not a Pokemon I bring in to fuck shit up. Meganium is, like, I leave at home, you know? Like, Meganium's, like, my, like, fun time, hang out, it's, like, maybe cuddle with Pokemon. It's not my, like, we're gonna go break into Team Rocket's secret base and just go fuck up the Pokemon mob. And I feel like you really need that in a final form. And there's something about the featurelessness of Chikorita's face in and of itself that makes me, again, feel slightly uncomfortable. There's, like, it's just... There's no detail anywhere in the face. Like, it's just got the eyes and the mouth, and that's it. And it's just, like, this, like, green nub is its whole head. And it's just, like, there's no delineation between, like, the neck and the shoulders or anything. It's just... there's a formlessness to Chikorita that makes me uncomfortable on a primal level. But I think Bayleaf is pretty cool.
You make some good points.
Yeah.
Number 5.
But Chikorita overall is a strong starter. Like, I think, like, all the Gold and Silver ones are strong. I just think the other ones are better.
Okay. Number 5, the hardest one to rank, didn't know what to do with this, ignore it if you want to, is Pikachu. All right? I put Pichu and Raichu on here just so I could continue the theme on this PowerPoint. I know Pichu isn't actually in Pokemon Yellow, and Pichu fucking sucks.
And Pichu's a baby version Pokemon. It's not... Pikachu is not the middle evolution.
No.
That's a retcon that I don't recognize.
Anyway, but Pikachu is awesome. Pikachu is a great mascot. I love Pikachu in Smash Brothers. He's not the best starter Pokemon because it makes the game really uncomfortably hard.
Yeah.
But Raichu's cool. Raichu's an awesome design. And, you know, you just got to give Pikachu some respect if you're ranking him in this list. So that's where he wound up. It was tough to rank.
Sure, yeah. Like, I would just personally exempt Pikachu from the list.
Okay.
But fair enough. Putting it at number 5, I think, is a fine compromise.
Okay. Number
4
is Torchic. Fuck you and your fucking Torchic hatred. Where's that? Everyone on Earth loves Torchic.
Blaziken is awful. Look at Blaziken.
Is awesome.
Look at that terrible design.
Blaziken is so
It's
cool.
wearing parachute pants, for God's sakes, Jonathan.
It's a disco Pokemon. How can you dislike that?
Because the disco Pokemon should be the middle form. The final form should be awesome, not lame.
I like Torchic. Torchic is so cool, he's come back in several other games, like X and Y. They fucking gave you Torchic on day 1, and I used him instead of that shitty starter, and he's just... I like Torchic as a chick. Then he becomes Combuskin, who's cool, and then Blaziken kicks... Blaziken is also a fucking powerful Pokemon. He kicks some ass. Look, I've spent a lot of time in the Ruby and Sapphire games, and X and Y, with my Blaziken and my Torchic. I think they're cool. I will hear no arguments on this. Torchic is awesome.
I mean, they reuse the same basic naming scheme for the latter 2 evolutions, where it's just you put Ken at the end because it's a chicken. Like, that doesn't fucking play for me. Like, that's no good. Combuskin is stupid. Combuskin looks like it's about to fall over because it can't even keep its own balance. Like, Torchic in and of itself is fine. Torchic is a good design. Combuskin, Blaziken are bad. I don't understand your reasoning here. At least Trico has his first form is cool, and his second form is even cooler. Like, Torchic only has Torchic. Torchic only has Torchic going for it.
If you level up Torchic enough, he learns Flamethrower.
You fucking put Torchic higher than Pikachu. That's madness.
As a starter.
Doesn't even matter. Like, that's like, regardless of how you're even ranking it. Torchic, Torchic doesn't belong higher than Chikorita, for God's sake. Torchic certainly doesn't belong this high on the list. You were wrong.
Number 3 is Bulbasaur.
Okay, now we're talking about some Pokemon. Now I'm into this.
I always want to put Bulbasaur higher, and I feel... Look, this is one of the hardest rankings I've ever had to do, when I actually had to, put my money where my mouth was and say I'm ranking the original 3 Pokemon. This was tough, because I really like Bulbasaur. I understand he's not the most useful Pokemon right off the bat, but he's cool, and he just keeps getting cooler. Ivysaur is awesome. Venusaur is really cool. He's got attitude, but he seems like a really nice Pokemon. He's kind of the one, like, in real life, I would just kind of like to hang out with.
Yes, it is like, it's always, once you get to the 3 canonical starter Pokemon, it is a heartbreaking process trying to rank them.
Yes.
Because they're all amazing.
They're all amazing.
Like, Bulbasaur is great. Like, the whole aesthetic of the evolution where, like, his bulb slowly evolves and, like, sprouts into a flower and then becomes this big, like, flower sort of tree on Ivysaur. Like, that's great. Or on Venusaur, that's great. Venusaur can use Solar Beam, which is an awesome move and is very appropriate for a plant-type Pokemon. It's one of the few really good plant-type moves, and I very much associate it with Venusaur.
Yes. Bulbasaur is the best plant Pokemon ever.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the best Pokemon ever. Bulbasaur rocks.
Yes, I'm 100% with you.
Number 2 is Squirtle.
Yes, okay.
Really tough again. If I were putting the Squirtle Squad image on here, he might even make it to number 1. But Squirtle is so awesome. He's Squirtle's main form is probably my favorite of his, even though they're all great. But he just looks so cute but cool. Then even has Wartortle, which, as you say, is the rebellious teenager phase.
Yeah.
Wartortle don't give a fuck. Then Blastoise has fucking literal cannons coming out of his shell.
Yes, and he's named Blastoise. Blastoise is one of the best named Pokemon in all of them. It's a Tortoise, Blast, he's a tank.
In
Blastoise.
terms of just names, Squirtle is my favorite. Because Squirtle to Wartortle to Blastoise, all 3 perfect.
Yeah, great names. I like Wartortle's got his weird little puffy ear things that are strange, but they look like they're really soft, and I kind of want to pet them. Yeah. But then you look at Blastoise, and it's the picture you have for Blastoise is perfect. Where he's got his back turned to you because he don't care. It don't matter. He can show his back to his enemy because what are they gonna do? That's where his goddamn shell is, right? And he's just looking over his shoulder, glancing. He's yeah, come at me, bro. Come on. I'm a giant bipedal turtle with giant fucking water tanks popping out of my shell. What are you gonna mess with? It ain't me, brother.
See, and you're convincing me. I almost always want to put Squirtle at number 1. Yeah. He's just so cool.
But there is the one truest of starter Pokemon.
It's Charmander.
It is. It always is.
Look, and it's because of Charizard. Charmander's great, but just on their own, I probably like Squirtle better than Charmander.
Sure.
In a fight, I probably like Wartortle better than Charmeleon, because I always forget his name is Charmeleon, because it's spelled like chameleon almost, and it's weird.
I mean, that's the naming aesthetic.
Yes.
I like Charmeleon.
I like Charmeleon just fine. But then Charizard, what are you going to say? Every pose of Charizard ever is fucking badass.
Yes.
Everything Charizard has ever done is badass. Every step of Charmander's life leads him to becoming the most badass Pokemon ever. How can you not love this guy?
Yeah.
From humble origins, he becomes a fucking rock-solid fighter.
I mean, he's the Pokemon that is too good for the main character of the anime. He's we talked about it earlier, but it is he is way too cool. He's way too awesome for a loser like Ash to ever use. Charizard doesn't mess with that shit. The naming scheme is perfect. You keep the Char all the way through, which is a creative word tangentially related to fire that feels like it evokes fire, but without it being too overt about it. And then you have the lizard change throughout all of it. Charmander, like a salamander, which is a great start because salamanders are mythically related to the element of fire. Then Charmeleon, like a chameleon. Chameleons are nice, exotic lizards. And then you get to Charizard, where it just gets down to the basics. The raw is just the Char lizard. Is a lizard, a big dinosaur dragon man who shoots fire at you, has wings, a big tail with a big gust of fire on the end. It's Charizard, man. He's the best. He's the best. I like that in each evolution he gains a horn. That he's hornless in Charmander, has one horn in Charmeleon. So Charmeleon can also be called one of the unicorn Pokemon. And Charizard has the 2 horns that complement the shape of his skull rather nicely, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, you can quibble with other rankings I have here, but I think I got the top 3 pretty good.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I was going to rank the top 3 starter Pokemon, which are the only rankings that really matter, I would rank them exactly this way.
Yeah. And look, they tower over everything else, but there are some other good ones on here.
Yeah, there really were. A couple of highlights,
I honestly would like to go back and play X and Y again at some point and play with Froakie or Fennekin. Probably Froakie, but I'd like to do that.
Yeah, X and Y had some pretty strong contenders there, surprisingly enough.
Well, they had 2 really good ones and then the absolute worst, because, agree with me with Chespin, look at that thing.
Yeah, Chespin's real lame. But having 2 good starter Pokemon is better than most other Pokemon games have.
Indeed. Well, what will Moon and Sun have? Only time will tell.
Hope maybe it'll just be Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Charmander. They just give up because they know we're never going to make better ones than this. It's there's a brief shining light with a couple of those X and Y ones, but in general, it felt like it was diminishing returns, All
right, well, I think it was good to get all of this off our chest. Finally talk about Pokemon at length. This was kind of like therapy for me, I think.
Yeah.
And probably indicating that I need more therapy, because as you say, I own Pokemon Mewtwo Returns on DVD.
Yeah.
But, we'll see you next week. And the week after that, I've got a whole schedule planned out. We've got some good episodes coming up. I hope you enjoyed this one.
I certainly did.
And I'm sure there will be more Digimon talk in the future.
Yeah, because, I mean, I feel like I've talked way too much about Pokemon today. Like, I need to get back to my Digimon, man. They're digital monsters. That's way better than monsters in your pocket.